All right, happy Tuesday, Black History Month, Year of the Dragon. Lots of things going on this month. I would like to call our February 13th California Transportation Interagency Equity Advisory Committee to order here in the great city of Sacramento, Greater Sacramento region, capital region. And I will hand it off to our esteemed clerk, Mr. Remedios, to call roll and give instructions for the meeting for folks online. Doug, take it away.
Thank you, Chair Walker. We'll start off with roll call. Vice Chair Armis Kelly. I believe she's on her way. Alexandria Contreras.
Present.
Michael Despain. Ana Gonzalez.
Present.
Herb Hastings. Peggy Martinez.
Present.
Amber Novi. Naila Pope Harden.
Mr. President.
Axel Santana.
Present.
Connie Stewart.
Present.
Randy Torres Van Vleck. You know he's on. We saw him on. He's online. Randy Torres Van Vleck.
It looks like he needs to be promoted to panelist. He's in the Q&A asking.
Yeah, we've been trying. Thank you. Stella Ursua. Cheryl Villegas Walker.
Here.
Christine Williams.
Present.
Randy, we're going to try you one more time. Randy Torres Van Vleck.
I'm present. Thank you.
Chair Walker.
Present.
Chair, we have a quorum.
And back to you for
Martha Armis Kelly, present.
Oh, welcome, Martha.
Thank you, Vice Chair Kelly. Armis Kelly.
Thank you.
We'll get some instructions. Welcome to the February 13th Interagency Transportation Equity Advisory Committee meeting. The committee's focus will be on elevating diverse and historically marginalized voices and will advise the California Transportation Commission, California State Transportation Agency, and the California Department of Transportation on how to achieve meaningful outcomes in transportation equity, environmental justice, and equitable economic opportunities, especially as related to transportation programming. The meeting agenda is located on the Commission's website at www.catc.ca.gov. Any document created for this committee can be translated into any language you need. Simply email us at ctc@catc.ca.gov, and we will have them returned to you as quickly as possible. American Sign Language is being provided on this meeting. You should see the translators on your screen. Spanish language translation is also being provided, both in the room with our service in the back, but you can also access through the interpretation tab at the bottom of your screen if you're online. Please use the Q&A tab if you have questions about this. Live closed captioning is also available. Please select the Show Captions tab at the bottom of your screen. There are a number of language options available there to choose from. For our presenters, if you're on the agenda to make a presentation, please do your best to be succinct. Please remember to speak at a steady pace to allow our translating services adequate time for accurate translations. If you're presenting remotely, we hope that you will turn on your camera during your presentation if you have one. For the members of the public, we welcome comments from the public as part of each item at this meeting. For those attending in person, please submit a speaker slip to the clerk at the front of the room. That's me, to let us know you want to comment on an item. For those attending via Zoom, you should see the webinar control panel, likely located at the bottom of your screen. There you'll find the raise hand and Q&A tabs. We encourage you to use the raised hand feature as soon as we reach the item you want to give comments on, and to give the system time to acknowledge you. Committee staff will let you know when it's your turn to make your comment. Alternately, you may use the Q&A tab to submit your comment. Committee staff will read the comment on your behalf. As a reminder, each registered attendee is provided a unique link to access the webinar. These should not be shared with other participants, as this can create confusion for staff when you're making your comments. Please do your best to be concise. Please remember to speak at a steady pace to allow our translating services adequate time for accurate translations. Please make sure that your comments add new information. If you agree with the comments of a previous speaker, simply make that statement. We ask that you make your point in 3 minutes or less. If for some reason we have many speakers on any single topic, we reserve the right to limit comments to 1 minute if needed. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Clerk Remedios. And I do want to also echo a welcome to the Sacramento region. Again, I'm William Walker. I'm the chair of the EAC and really honored to serve in this role and happy to be here in person in real life with my fellow colleagues here. Big shout out to the Sacramento Area Council of Governments where we are seated right now. We are really gracious for you hosting us today, and we'll be hearing shortly from Planning Director, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Casey Lizon. Yes, we'll be hearing shortly. I'm gonna give some brief remarks first. Come on and get ready. So also a big shout out to the District 3 region, folks who work here in as far north as Marysville and maybe Glenn County. I might be off on that, but the folks who help keep transportation moving in the area, as well as folks from our partners, local governments, from our other state agencies. We welcome you all, and we're happy that you're hosting us here in the Capitol. And a big thank you to our devoted staff from our 3 interagencies departments, Caltrans, CalSTA, and the CTC. So very thankful for Abby, Mark, and Secretary Michalkin, Carolyn Alexis, Deputy Director Kiever, and Director Tavares, as well as Sequoia, Destiny, Justin, Doug, and Director Taylor. So really appreciative of all your work. And I know I'm leaving people out, and I'll be sure to shout you out hopefully before the day is over. Also, big shout out to my vice chair, who's on the bat phone right now, but on her way, Ms. Armas Kelly, for all of your support. Definitely looking forward to today's meeting where we'll begin to formalize and, as one of my fellow colleagues stated in their survey response, codify what we do as a committee. We'll be having general public comment. So folks who are here from the public, we're waiting to hear from you all. We'll be getting to you towards the top of the meeting. We'll be approving minutes and finalizing our schedule for the year, as well as some informational items on our EAC focus areas, the interagency work plan, a discussion on our expanded leadership, our ex officio membership, and a presentation from our friends at Civic Thread. We'll be hearing from them as well. So, and lastly, we'll have updates on the Senate Bill 1 program guidelines from CalSTA on the draft Housing and Transportation Interagency Work Group Anti-Displacement Memorandum, and a presentation from CalSTA, as well as a presentation on excess lands from Caltrans. We'll end with member reports, a closing next steps, and from any members of the public who were unable to address us at the top of the meeting. Any questions so far from my colleagues? Does that all sound good? All right, without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Deputy Director of Planning, Casey Lizon, who is here with the Sacramento Area Council of Governments, representing from right here all the way up to the state line and the snow line as it is right now. So welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. I should know
Almost
how
done.
this all works.
Too much credit? All right. A little snow though. So like once or twice.
Are you correcting on the? Thank you so much. It's okay. It's complicated. We're a complicated region in a complex state, so it makes sense. Good afternoon, Chair, and to all the members of the Equity Advisory Committee. Can you hear me? Thank you. Yeah, it's a little tricky. There we go. Good afternoon. My name again is Casey Lizon. I'm Deputy Executive Director for Planning and Programs here at SACOG. We're so honored to be hosting you today in the Sacramento region and at SACOG's offices. So welcome. I was asked to give you a little bit of insight behind SACOG's own equity work. We have an initiative, it's the Race Equity Inclusion Initiative, that was started in 2020. Like many government agencies, we were reflecting on the racial reckoning of the time. And our board leadership actually wanted to do something, but not everyone was understanding or coming to the issues from the same place. And so really what that all initiated for us at SACOG was an exploration of what government's role has been historically, particularly in this region and in the transportation, housing, and land use sector in creating and perpetuating disparities and injustices. And so that was a journey that was very, very board led here at SACOG to explore all of that. And so went into really recapping the history of redlining and racially restrictive covenants, which then led to exclusionary zoning and redevelopment and highway construction, and then all of the health and economic disparities that that come from that. And over the last several years, what our board has done is very intentionally, methodically, and slowly started to try to hone in on what can SACOG as a metropolitan planning organization and also a council of governments. So we are also a voluntary organization of 22 cities and 6 counties. All of those cities and counties sit around our board table. What can we do? What can they do when they come together as a council of governments to address the disparities that we see, that we know that whether intentionally or not, SACOG as a government entity has perpetuated and sustained. And so over the course of time, SACOG, the board, developed, or they created a race equity inclusion working group that was comprised eventually of board members and members of the public. So we are really excited to see that CTC is doing this, and started off just by creating a statement, a racial equity statement of change and commitment. And I want to thank actually the CTC for its leadership in creating a statement, because when it came time, we started to look at what is the appropriate way for us to create a statement, and we actually took a lot of inspiration from the CTC statement and then the actions that they took as well. And so from there, we created that statement through the working group. The SACOG board adopted it. It had a number of commitments within it as well to listen and learn to our internal and external stakeholders, to plan, so to create a racial equity action plan, to serve and learn with our members, to act on our own as a council of governments where we have funding and we do planning and we create policy and process, and then also to monitor over time. So the race equity inclusion working group created that action plan that had a focus on SACOG's operations, our programs, and our board practices. And our board of directors adopted that at the end of 2022. So we've been just a little bit over a year of implementing that. We are doing that, as I said, pretty methodically and intentionally through some very obvious things like our long-range transportation plan update, where we're trying to do much more robust community engagement and working with community-based organizations to help us to reach out to groups who don't typically participate. But we are also doing it through some other means that are not going to be as obvious, but through trying to really scrutinize our procurement and contracting processes to make those more open to more organizations and businesses that could do business with us, to trying to examine how we design programs so that we can evaluate them over time and see how can we measure their equity impact and learn from that and try to adjust and make them more equitable over time. So slow things that we are doing, but I will say what this committee is going to be doing, what you are already doing in weighing in on, say, the CTC's funding guidelines, that's going to have a very real impact. You know, our region will look to that, the lead agencies in our regions will look to that, and that is going to influence the kinds of projects they put forth, just to bring it all together. So we thank you for your service. And again, we're so excited that you're here holding your committee.
receive one virtual attendee requesting comment on this item.
All right, let me, I will take you these
Yeah.
first.
Okay.
But we will get a public comment in a moment. I want to wrap up my remarks, and I think that they're. We've been here about a year, and I had an incident where I thought I was being helpful, and I reached out to my fellow colleagues, and I was told that I was potentially in violation of that. And I'm always open to criticism. I'm so sorry. So, forgot to turn my mic back on, and I'm learning the process here. So, I'm doing brief remarks for folks who are online, and I apologize that my mic wasn't on. And I was just starting to speak about the fact that we've been here as a committee for a little bit over a year. I know that our first official meeting was in March, but we've been held to the Bagley Keene Act since November of 2022. And I had an interaction that I didn't think went very well, and I'm pretty sure that my colleagues are completely in the dark about it, which means I'm doing my job and not breaking this policy. But the way that I was told that I broke the policy, and the way that that we work with members of the community, I would just hope that in building this relationship with staff that we can have the same level of camaraderie and mutual respect that I see you all having with folks that have a higher position than the Equity Advisory Committee. I hate to say that it's a higher commission, but the commissioners do have a higher position than we do because they actually vote on funding related to transportation infrastructure in the state. And the inability of this body to be able to have conversations makes it very difficult to actually weigh in on the decision-making of the state bodies that fund transportation. So I don't want to take too much time because we're already running a little bit late, but I would be remiss if I didn't make this a public comment because I feel that the interactions with staff have changed since my interaction with the staff member that told me that they had very limited time and they didn't have time to discuss the mistakes that I made, but that like I needed to stop making mistakes. And rather than taking the time here, I just want it to be known, I have brought a substitute motion for item 5, the calendar, and I have copies here for folks who need it. And I don't think everyone at the table has it yet. And for folks in the audience that would like to see it, it's important that this body be able to have an impact on funding decisions at the state level. And for us to be meeting without decision makers like we are today, it's a waste of the time and energy that we put into this work. And I understand that there are staff members here today, and I don't take your roles lightly. I understand that we have immense influence by being able to have a working relationship with you all, which I'm trying to rebuild. But what I will say is the more that this body can interact with commission staff, with our Secretary of Transportation, and with the powers that be, the district directors, their equity leads that we haven't even met yet. There are 12 equity leads that are in the process of being hired in every district of the state that we have no clue like what the criteria were. And I understand that there are personnel issues that we're not privy to, but it would be nice for us to be a part of the $7 billion of funding decisions made by the commission and the other funding decisions being made at Caltrans and at CalSTA that aren't even a purview of that $7 billion. And I'm going to do my best as I hold this role to ensure that we're in the room and being heard. Questions or comments from my colleagues? public comment on item 2, welcoming remarks from both SACOG and myself, the chair of the EAC. Clerk Hall.
Oh,
Yes, thank you. I do see one virtual attendee with their hand raised at this time. I'd like to call on Elizabeth Senya.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, members of the California Transportation Commission. Thank you for the opportunity to address you today. My name is Elizabeth Senna. I live in the city of Fontana. I also work with the Center for Community Action and Environmental Justice. I'm here today to express my concerns regarding the proposed expansion of Caltrans and the associated freeway projects. Firstly, I would like to emphasize that continuing to expand our freeways may not be the most sustainable solution. While expanding may seem like a real quick and easy fix, it inevitably leads to more cars on the road, exacerbating congestion and environmental issues. We need to shift our focus from prioritizing car-centric infrastructure to investing in more sustainable alternatives. The introduction of fast track options within these expanded freeways raises other critical concerns, like fast track, while offering convenience, tends to be disproportionately accessible to the affluent, leaving a significant portion of the population with limited options. This creates a divide where commuters are forced to choose between paying with their time or their money. Instead of perpetuating this inequality, I propose considering alternative solutions such as investing in public transportation like trains within the expansion. A comprehensive approach to transportation planning should involve the community. Unfortunately, current projects often lack adequate community input. I urge the commission to prioritize community engagement through workshops and open forums. By including the community in the planning process, we can address concerns that may not be apparent through technical assessments alone. I am confident that if the community had the opportunity to participate in today's meeting, their insights would shed light on pressing issues of the potholes in our area. With recent heavy rains, it's exposed the vulnerabilities of our roads, and it's concerning to witness the extent of the damage. More community involvement can lead to better informed decisions that address not only current issues, but also potential future challenges. And so in conclusion, I just urge the commission to reconsider the emphasis on freeway expansion, prioritize accessible transportation options, and actively involve the community in the decision-making process. Because I truly believe that together we can build a transportation system that is equitable, sustainable, and resilient to the challenges of the future. And I just want to say, like, thank you, Chair, for raising the voices of the fact that this meeting is pointless unless community is here, because I believe that 100%. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Senna. I'm assuming your pronoun. I hope that's okay. Any
Yes.
other public comments?
This
You're
is
welcome.
Peggy. Can you hear me?
Yes, and actually, that's right. You did come on before, and that's what I wanted to clarify. So if there are members that want to speak, if you could let us know. I'm actually logging into the Zoom right now, so I can see if you want to speak.
gotcha.
And so I will go to you, Peggy, in a moment, but I also want to clarify that this is public comment about the chair's remarks and about SACOG, so, and the region, the welcome to the region. So we'll come to general public comment in a moment. Ms. Martinez, Member
Hi.
Martinez. Hi.
Yes, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. This comment does directly relate to the chair's recent comment about the Equity Advisory Committee members' sort of influence, if you will. And I want to sort of support our chairman, our chairperson with the notion here, or the idea, or the concept that we as committee members, have various experience slash expertise slash gosh, I'm having a hard time expressing, but what I really want to say here is that I think it's absolutely important to, as we learn and as the committee takes shape, that our voices are heard in a more substantive way. That our experience and the things that we bring to the committee are heard in a way that will be a lot, that will sort of increase the influence that we have when it comes to funding and where money is spent and how we can sort of exercise our experience and influence. Because, I mean, I hesitate to say that that we're wasting our time, but I do feel that the state, and for all the resource that the state is putting into this committee, that in some respects, yes, it would be sort of a misuse of all of the expertise and experience that the committee members bring to not have more influence when it comes to funding and, giving input there. I don't think I said that very well, but I did my best. So thank you. I'm done.
I think you did well. Other comments from members, and thank you, Member Martinez. We'll have more time to just,
Oh, no, I'm just starting a water.
we'll have,
I had my hand up.
great. Is it? I was making sure. It was Vice Chair Arms Kelly.
Well, I'm very happy to be here, and I was not able to start out our meeting as I would have wanted to, and I apologize for my logistics, but I do want to start out by addressing the tribal lens that we are on.
I believe are the land of the Miwok, if I'm not. It's in the Yokut. No. I'm sorry? Nisana.
Such,
Go ahead, Miss Vice Chair Armas.
sorry, as such, the Miwok, the Maidu, the Cayuse, the Umatilla, and the Walla Walla tribes. I want to be cognizant of the spaces that we're in. And I understand how frustrating it must be for us as a group not to have the ability to have decision-making processes, but we had this discussion in the beginning.
And we lost you at beginning. I want to make sure you get back to from beginning. You're breaking up. Go ahead and continue from that.
You know what? I'm going to jump off because I'm going to try to get on again because I'm hearing a lot of feedback.
I'm sorry about that. And
That's okay. That's okay.
Great. Thank you, Vice Chair. And I
Thank
will
you.
just, it's crazy that the remarks for the nation, the First Nations that we're currently occupying without, permission, unceded lands, that's the term I'm looking for. It completely was a part of my remarks and just kind of got lost in the day. Lots going on, but definitely that will be something that we discuss as we talk about our expanded leadership and how we all can continue this work outside of the limited number of meetings that we do have. Are there other comments from members of the committee? I'll return the public.
Yeah.
Oh. Oh, there we go. On the upper left. I'm so sorry. Member Stewart, please.
Hi, I just wanted to respond to your opening remarks, and I wanted to just express empathy for the pain of that interaction. But I also wanted to just let you know that District 1 did reach out to me and asked me to be a speaker at their equity meeting coming up at on the 27th. So, I wanted to give I've criticized District 1 in the past, so I wanted to give a particular shout out to them for reaching out right away and asking me to speak at their next meeting. So,
That's awesome to hear. Thank you.
I hope other members have the same experience in their districts.
Great. Member Diego's Walker.
Thank you, Cousin Walker. So two really brief comments. The first is I still think that our committee, the EAC, is trying to find our way on where we can be of assistance and influence. And I think that we really need to be deliberate and intentional on what it is that our role and our mission is, and where we can be of influence. Not just sitting on the sidelines and listening, but actually where can our talents be of assistance? Where can this committee have some influence? Which leads me to my second point, which is I really think it is critical for this committee to have an understanding of how regional transportation plans are constructed, how they are funded, how they are prioritized, and the level of public engagement that is part of that. It's not just these agencies who come up with a list of projects and put them in some kind of an order. There is a tremendous amount of public outreach that goes into getting onto a project list for transportation funding. And so I think there's just a little bit of a disconnect because the EAC has not had the benefit perhaps of that knowledge and process being shared with all of us, so that we have a greater understanding of the depth and width of public participation in the prioritization of transportation projects. So I would like to see, Cousin Walker, if we could, at an upcoming agenda, please have someone available from one of the metropolitan planning organizations that talks about the level of public engagement that goes into that process. Thank you.
Thank you, Cousin. Do we have any other member comments here in the room or online? Then I will return to public comment clerk hall.
Great, thank you so much. Next, I'd like to call on Claudia Cuevas. Claudia, I see your hand raised. You're now free to unmute yourself and make your comment. All right, hearing nothing, I will move on. We did receive one written comment from Commissioner Donia Lugo. I think having EAC members engage with program funding guidelines would be invaluable, perhaps as part of a public workshop setting. I would really benefit from participating in a format like that. Thank you.
Hola, buenas tardes.
Oh, Claudia?
Sí, hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Claudia Cuevas. Soy un miembro de la comunidad y yo hablo español. No he entendido mucho lo que se ha tratado el meeting porque traté de ponerlo en traducción, no me permitió la
Discúlpame,
traducción.
señorita, disculpa, por favor, necesitamos que traducir y tenemos una
Sí, traductor.
pues,
Sí, gracias.
ella va a
Señora, buenas tardes, señora Claudia. Yo soy
Oh,
intérprete.
we need you closer to the mic so we can hear you. And we're going to have the translator translate in English as you speak in Spanish.
So just let me tell her real quick that I'm an interpreter, that I'm going to go ahead just to give me a few minutes, a few seconds to do it. Señora, buenas tardes. Yo soy intérprete. Me pidieron que estuviera aquí para hacer la interpretación. Si me puede hablar después que hable, deme unos segunditos para yo poder decirlo en inglés. ¿Está bien?
Sí,
Deme un
perfecto.
segundito. Okay. So good afternoon. My name is first voice. You know, I'm Claudia. She was saying that she doesn't quite understood what was going on because she tried to do the interpretation, listen to the meeting in Spanish, but she couldn't quite get it. So, but, you know, she's a member of the community, and let me go ahead and get her comment. Okay, señora Claudia, muchas gracias. Pues si me puede decir qué es lo que quería decir.
Oh, sí, gracias. Pues necesitamos la importancia del involucramiento de la comunidad hacia estos meetings en español.
We need, dame un segundito. We need the participation in the committee, and we would like for the meetings to be, for this to be geared to the Spanish-speaking community.
Porque nosotros como comunidad hispana tenemos mucho la accesibilidad del transporte público.
Because as a Spanish community, we need to be accessible for the transportation. We need to be.
Pero lo que está pasando con la comunidad hispana que ya no utiliza más el transporte público por la accesibilidad de los horarios son horribles. Tardas de 30 minutos a 1 hora en espera.
Espera un momento.
Dame un segundito, sí, dame un
Sí, sí.
segundito. Yes, the Hispanic community tries to use the transportation. The problem is that it's the schedules are horrible. Sometimes we have to wait between 30 minutes to an hour before, we get transportation. Lista, señora.
Entonces, si queremos que la comunidad vuelva a utilizar el transporte público, necesitamos hacer un cambio.
So if we want the community to start using the transportation again, we need a change.
Y yo estoy no a la expansión del Freeway 15.
So she's not in favor of expanding Freeway 15.
Interstate 15.
Sí, del Freeway 15, porque estamos exageradamente congestionados con el tráfico.
Because the traffic is very congested, it's too much.
Y al abrir 1 o 2 carriles más, va a ser mucho peor.
And if we open 2 to 3 more lanes, it's just going to be worse.
Y también quisiera saber qué va a hacer la ciudad respecto al transporte público, al respecto sobre todos los baches que han ocasionado las lluvias gracias a los camiones pesados.
And also, I would like to know what the city is going to do about the potholes that were created because of the rain, because of the use of the heavy trucks.
Mi hijo tuvo un accidente que cayó en un bache y a causa del bache tan profundo que estaba, el carro explotaron las 2 llantas.
My son, he was involved in an accident. There was this huge pothole. He went into it, and both of the 2 tires of the car exploded.
Metimos una queja a la ciudad y la ciudad nos denegó el arreglo de mi carro.
We filed a complaint with the city, and the city denied the complaint.
Entonces no es justo que como comunidad y pagando yo mis impuestos tenga que arreglar algo que yo no lo ocasioné.
And then I don't think it's fair that even though I'm a taxpayer, it's not fair for me to have to pay for the expenses to the damage that was done to the car.
Muchas gracias por escucharme. Que tengan un lindo día.
Thank you very much for listening. Have a great, wonderful day.
Muchísimas gracias, señorita. Thank you very much. Is that all public comment? That's not all. Who is next?
Thank you, Chair Walker. Up next, I'd like to call on Roberto Flores.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but there's an echo. So if you have it up on your computer and up on like your headset or something.
Can you hear me?
That's much better. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me now? Yes.
Yes, we may. I mean, yes, we can.
Here we go.
And you may go ahead.
Okay. I see the EAC as a change agent, a change facilitator. I see the EAC as a way to open many conversations with and among the affected communities. We can continue participating here, but we believe that the communities talking directly to Caltrans, to CTC, outside of their meetings or at a special meeting is the goal. And the EAC is trying to facilitate this. We are trying to knock down this wall between Caltrans particularly and the community. There's not only no community engagement, but the Caltrans makes every effort to avoid community engagement. We need the 3 agencies to take the EAC more seriously, open up, and there should be consequences for continued misbehavior or behavior that violates equity. I agree that the EAC should have power to affect funding for continuous violations of equity.
Thank you, Mr. Flores. I'm believing that you were done with your comments. Clerk Hall.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to call on Joaquin Castillejos.
Good afternoon, Interagency Equity Advisory Committee. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I am from San Bernardino County, and I'm here to comment on the new expansions on the 15 freeway in in between the in the area. It's I would like to also, bounce off the last comments that, this committee is a change agent and, should be at the forefront of addressing concerns of the impacts that expansions and investments into more car and truck um, designated infrastructure will have on communities that are already at the front lines of air pollution and truck traffic. Um, by allowing this expansion, what we are saying to the Inland Empire is that yes, you are a inland port. Yes, this area is designated for trucking for the logistics industry. And no, we are not going to invest into community. We're not going to invest into public transportation. By allowing these type of expansions, developers will continue to look at our region as a place to exploit and to take over, to take the land. Um, you know, I could give an example of my community in Bloomington. When you see the way developers market these areas, they say, oh, we have the 15 freeway to the west, we have the 215, the 10, the 60. It's the perfect area to build your warehouses. And it's like they no longer see us as an area where community is situated. Now they see us as a place that could be taken over by the logistics industry. And I think it's time for, the Interagency Equity Advisory Committee to commit to our communities to, start a shift from truck and car oriented infrastructure into community oriented infrastructure, and to make sure that at every step of the way, community is involved and part of these conversations. Because even if the 15 freeway expansion is 2 cities away from me, that doesn't mean that we won't feel it. It's impacting the entire region, and we need to invest into um, real public transportation that will provide us a new sense of community, a new sense of togetherness throughout the region. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk call.
Yes, up next, I'd like to call on Angela Flores.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
All right, so I'm here for a couple reasons. One, to support preserving an abandoned property led by the Bungalows Collective and to support reclaiming our homes. I'm part of the Bungalows Collective that was formed 18 years ago to address an abandoned property on Maycrest and raise money from the community to start a renovation process for a community cultural arts resource center. At the time, we got support from Andy Nuremberg, the director of Right Away. And we didn't hear anything from him or Caltrans for the last 11 years. And then we find out the bungalows are actually on a list of properties to be sold off, specifically to Hakla. So we need those bungalows to be transferred to the land trust, the El Sereno Community Land Trust. We owe it to the community who has receipts and sweat equity in getting those bungalows for the community. That's one. And I'm also a Caltrans tenant for the past 30 years. My family and I live in South Pasadena, have firsthand for most of my life seen the injustices from Caltrans. We've seen our neighbors and other Caltrans tenants go through harassment, avoidance, evictions for no reason, and complete negligence, and some who have died without having any real housing justice. And Caltrans has discriminated and done irreparable harm to the community, specifically of El Sereno, by leaving over 150 empty homes abandoned, and now recently with folks who have been incredibly brave by risking their lives to seize empty houses. I sat here already a couple of times on these equity calls with the EAC giving Caltrans a pass when we've been waiting for someone to hold them accountable. They need to be held accountable for the harm that they've done. So I implore you all, please transfer all properties to the El Sereno Community Land Trust, which I'm a part of, created by members of Caltrans tenants, residents, and stakeholders of El Sereno. This is the only HRE from our community, and we only got one property from the bidding process. How's that fair? How's that equitable? Thank you.
Great, and just for other folks who might want to be commenting on issues related to reclaimers and excess lands, we have 2 items on the agenda. So I'm hoping that folks who are speaking right now are speaking to either the welcome remarks or to the introduction to the region, because I can't let you speak again on that item if you're speaking on it now. So it's important that you're just paying attention to the agenda. So it's a fair game. So, but if you're not able to be here at that time, we can make arrangements for that. So any further comment on the welcome to the region or comments from the chair, myself, William Walker? None at this time. So that said, we can move to item number 3, which is approval of meeting minutes if there's no further comment from my colleagues here or online. So we're moving to meeting minutes. In your packet in tab 3, there are minutes from both the November 17th and December 8th meetings. November 17th being the teleconference meeting where we elected both myself and Vice Chair Ms. Kelly, and the December 8th executive EAC meeting. Any comments from Ms. Preston, CTC staff? You looked at me.
Oh, yes. Well, just to kind of summarize, thank you for introducing that. So committee members, tab 3 is an action item to approve the minutes for the Interagency Equity Advisory Committee meetings that were held on November 17th and December 8th, 2023, and staff recommends your approval.
Got it. Hope everyone got a chance to review the minutes. Any questions or comments? I guess we should take a roll. Oh, go ahead.
Chair Walker, this is Villegas Walker. I'd move the minutes as presented.
Great. Are you moving both or just November?
Both.
Both
November and December, please.
All right.
And may I second that?
Yeah. Minutes moved by Villegas Walker, seconded by Novi. Any other comment, questions? Roll call vote, or should we vote by acclamation?
You have to vote by roll because we don't have a quorum in present.
Okay, great. That's right.
Vice Chair Ms. Kelly.
Yes.
Thank you. Alexandria Contreras.
Yes.
Michael Despain. Ana Gonzalez.
Yes.
Herb Hastings. Peggy Martinez.
Yes.
Amber Novi. Naila Pope Harden.
Yes.
Axel Santana.
Yes.
Connie Stewart.
I need to abstain since I was out of the country for both meetings.
Thank you. Randy Torres Van Vleck.
I approve.
Stella Ursua. Cheryl Villegas Walker.
Yes.
Christine Williams.
Yes.
Chair Walker.
Yes.
Chair, the motion is approved.
Thank you very much. Moving to item number 4. This is public comment for items not on the agenda, and it's for items that you don't think we'll be hearing about today. And I can tell you what's left on the agenda: our meeting schedule, our priority focus areas and interagency work plan, our expanded leadership structure, a presentation from Civic Thread, which is one of the local organizations here in the Sacramento region, and a discussion on our ex officio membership, Senate Bill 1 program guidelines, draft housing and transportation anti-displacement memorandum, which deals with issues around housing and gentrification, as well as the Caltrans excess lands presentation, which might or might not talk about issues related to El Sereno, the 710 corridor and housing in that area. I think it's appropriate if you have comments in relation to that to speak there. If I have not said an issue that you'd like to speak about, that means it's an issue of general public comment, and I'd like to open the floor to that at this time. See, oh, we have some online. Seeing none in the room, we do have public comment online.
Yes, thank you, Chair Walker. We do have one virtual attendee at this time who has their hand raised looking to comment. I'd like to call on Alba Duran.
Go ahead, Ms. Duran. Speak. Please speak.
Alba, I see your hand raised. You've been unmuted. You're free to unmute yourself at this time and make a comment. All right. I'm hearing nothing and seeing no effort to unmute themselves at this time. And that is the only virtual attendee I see indicating they wish to comment at this time.
Great. At this time, I will close public comment. We will return to public comment at the end of the meeting if you have not spoken to general public comment. Moving along, any other, there probably aren't any questions or concerns from us about public comment because that's not our domain. Item number 5, approval of the 2024 Equity Advisory Committee meeting schedule. This is an action item that will be presented by staff. And just a note, I also will be presenting a motion that I've authored in regard to this item. For that reason, I actually, for logistical purposes, it's probably, I'm going to throw it to you, Martha, if you'd like to chair from teleconferencing, if you'd like to take the chair, but if not, I could hand it to someone in the room. I'm
here. I'm present.
Do you want to share this item, or would you like me to hand it to someone in the room just because it's logistically easier to see people here?
You know what? I'm comfortable with that. I just feel that I don't have the item, the actual print of what you've submitted to the rest of the team, and I'd rather be able to see it, and I can't see it. But I would like to say that in order for us to be able to have.
Before you take the chair, if you want to comment on the item, you would have to wait till the end of as the chair, and but I can hand the chairship over to you, and we can send you the item by email.
No. I would rather someone continues for time, for the sake of time.
Okay.
And for efficiency, I'd like to do that. But I just wanted to say that at the end, I'll before we actually close for a vote, I'd like to make a final comment on that particular piece. Thank you.
And if I may, Destiny also has a presentation provided with the.
Understood. I just want to make sure that I'm not chairing the item while she presents. So I'm going to hand the chair to Member Contreras, if you so may. You're welcome to take the chair, and I'm going to be a member for this item. So you'll just.
Chair, I believe we have to take a vote for you to elect someone else chair who's not the vice chair.
Oh, I have to take a shot. Oh, we have to take a vote for it?
We have to take a vote.
Okay. All right. So before I hand the chair over to Member Contreras, we do have to take a vote for logistical purposes. It's a part of our charter. I can even explain this on mic. I'm going to hand the chair to you, and you're going to just take over and take comments as you see them from us. Oh, I'm sorry. And then you'll take it to the public comment with the assistance of our clerks, and then you'll send it to the clerks for a call for the vote once you've heard from us, the public, and maybe us again if there's comments out for public comment. So, but right now we're going to, I need a motion in a second to hand the chair to Member Contreras for item 5.
Villegas Walker, I'll move the item, or move the rotation.
All right. Moved
And this is
by,
Peggy, I can second.
it's moved by, I got Member Novi first, and I'm going to give it to Member Villegas Walker as a second, and I'll be sure to distribute those so we can have them. I think we can, because we're not all here, we're going to have to do a roll call vote for this.
Yes, sir.
Clerk Remedios.
Thank you. Vice Chair Armis Kelly.
I agree. Yes.
Alexandria Contreras.
Yes.
Michael Despain, Ana Gonzalez,
Yes.
Herb Hastings, Peggy Martinez. Peggy, how do you vote on this?
Yes, can you hear me? Am I unmuted?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, then, yeah, my answer is yes.
Thank you. Amber Novi, Naila Pope Harden,
Yes.
Axel Santana,
Yes.
Connie Stewart,
Yes.
Randy Torres Van Vleck,
Yes.
Stella Ursua, Cheryl Villegas Walker,
Yes.
Christine Williams,
Yes.
Chair Walker.
Aye.
Chair, the motion is approved.
Great. I'll be handing the chair to Member Contreras.
Thank you all. And for sake of time, let's move on with the presentation from Destiny.
Hi, committee members. So tab 5 is an action item to approve the Interagency Equity Advisory Committee's 2024 meeting schedule. And we do have, if you can move on to the next slide, please. Should be a summary of the dates. So I wanted to start off by noting that staff carefully considered both our capacity to plan around commission meetings, town hall meetings, the tri-state meeting, and Caltrans executive meetings. We also selected dates that would not interfere with a number of events, including the Native American Advisory Committee meetings, the Strategic Growth Council meetings, Coastal Commission meetings, as well as meetings held by the Governor's Office of Planning and Research, Integrated Climate Adaptation and Resiliency Program. In addition, we planned around the Mobility 21 Summit, the California Transit Association Conference, and the Focus on the Future Conference. So the book item includes the following staff recommendations: a virtual meeting on April 5th, a hybrid EAC executive meeting on May 15th with an in-person attendance opportunity in Orange County, a hybrid EAC only meeting on August 22nd to be held in Northern California, a virtual meeting on October 24th, and a hybrid EAC executive meeting on December 4th with an in-person attendance opportunity in Riverside. Staff will work to facilitate EAC member attendance at town halls, the tri-state meeting, and other public meetings. And we will also work to review the committee's recommendations and resolve various calendaring scheduling challenges with the adoption of the calendar. That concludes my comments.
Thank you, Destiny. I appreciate that and the presentation. Moving this on to Chair Remedios, if this is the way, if this is the correct way to do this, pass it on to Walker so that way he can present his motion.
Yeah, unless someone wants to make a motion on what was presented by staff.
Anyone would like to make a motion? All right, let's move on. Walker, you have the floor.
Great. Thank you, Chair Contreras. So I actually didn't have all of the dates that Ms. Preston had in hand when I came up with my recommendations, but I do want to share what I did have in hand and how I came to my conclusions about the calendar that I'm presenting before you. So as of today, February 13th, 2024, I wasn't sure. I know that there are some members that are departing, so I'm so glad that I didn't omit those members yet because I don't know when those members are departing. I'm so happy that you're still here with us. So as of today, we have members from the following districts in the state: Caltrans districts 1, 3, 4, 7, 8, 10, and 11. And this is on the third page of the packet that I handed out in person, and I'm not sure if it's been distributed online, but for folks who are on the EAC, if you have it, this is the motion that's for tab 5, and it's a substitute motion for the schedule. And I want to say that the CTC and the town hall meetings that have been scheduled for the remainder of this year are in districts 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 11, and 12. I'll say that again because there's translation. I'm so sorry. Districts 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 11, and 12 are the districts that currently have either an EAC or a commission meeting scheduled or a public hearing of some sort, according to the CTC's website. We've already had meetings in districts 3, 4, 7, and 10 since the beginning of the EAC. Districts 2 and 9 have not had any substantial engagement with the commission or the EAC since we've been in EAC over the past year. So according to our charter, the purpose of our committee is to elevate diverse and historically marginalized voices and to advise our transportation agency partners. According to the Bagley-Keene Act, we're not to have closed meetings or serial communications outside of our public meeting structure. We can't speak online, according to Bagley-Keene, and serial meetings derive the public of the ability to communicate. So we don't want to have those types of meetings. I said this earlier in the meeting that $7 billion in funding that I can be certain of has been expended over the past year, probably more, but that's what I could track based upon our agendas and minutes for the CTC. And there are very few of us that have been able to be at both EAC meetings and commission meetings, or EAC meetings and public hearings in relation to the development of our strategic plans, our SHOP, which is the State Highway Operation and Performance Plan, or I hope I'm getting that right, but our maintenance program. There are several program hearings that we as EAC members, because of our other commitments with either our work, our school, our raising of our families, of our significant elder family members or others that might have, the same issues that you all as staff have, we have as EAC members. That being said, and there's more in the motion, but I don't want to take up too much time. These are my recommendations for amendments to the current calendar. That the April 5th Equity Advisory Committee meeting, currently to be determined, which I now know is a virtual meeting, will be moved to the April 16th or 17th Fort Bragg Town Hall meeting, making this meeting accessible to folks who are in District 1, of which 2 of our members are in District 1. And at this current calendar doesn't have any in-person meetings for those members. That our August 22nd Equity Advisory Committee meeting be located in District 2 in July or August, or that it be moved to September to be co-located with the September Tri-State Commission meeting and done in conjunction with a presentation from the California High-Speed Rail Authority. That the October 24th Equity Advisory Committee meeting be moved to October 16th and co-located with the Bakersfield meeting, which is in District 9, and be redesignated as an executive meeting. And I suggested that because we've already had an executive meeting in Riverside. That the December 4 Executive Advisory Committee meeting be held in June in conjunction with the Monterey Bay Commission meeting, or in November in conjunction with the joint CTC CARB HCD meeting. That the Commission, CalSTA, and Caltrans staff work with the 12 district directors and assigned equity leads to ensure that a local level EAC type body is established for each district in conjunction with the EAC ad hoc committee. A town hall is held for each of the geographic subcommittees created by the EAC, which is pending approval at the next meeting, but it will be discussed today during items 7 and 9. Once per year, a town hall for the 3 geographic subregions. And that the above stated bodies and meetings are advertised to a stakeholder list to be jointly created by district staff, EAC staff, and with input from members of the EAC. That the EAC staff evaluate the following metrics when considering the scheduling of future meetings. Ability for the EAC to elevate diverse and marginalized voices in spaces where decisions are made that directly impact said communities, such as commission meetings, joint CTC CARB HCD meetings, public hearings of the commission, Caltrans or CalSTA, or any other meetings of interest where decisions are made. Ability for EAC members to attend at least one EAC meeting held in conjunction with another partner agency without traveling over 150 miles. Ability for California residents to attend either an EAC meeting or any official hearing or meeting of the commission within 150 miles of their residence, at least once in a 2-year period. That EAC staff establish a comment form, a website with member profiles, an email address, a telephone number, and a generic business card for EAC members to distribute with this information, and a space to write their personal information on that card to support outreach efforts of the EAC. In closing, we have to be a part of this process. It can't just be, and I understand that this process is understaffed. That's what this motion's about. I understand that there needs to be more staff for this initiative, but in the absence of staff and ability to coordinate with members of this committee, a calendar, and being able to poll us, just like you would poll commissioner meetings to see what days are best for us, we have calendars too. It would behoove you all to include us in these conversations so that I don't have to present a 4-page motion and spend more time on this that you all had intended for us to spend. So I'll leave it at that. And I appreciate your time, Chair.
First, thank you for that presentation. Are there any comments from the committee?
Madam Chair. This is Doug Remedios, the commission clerk. For, I guess, your member Walker at the moment, there's a few issues with some of the dates you've selected. So very specifically, the town hall meetings, they are not our meetings. They are their meetings that we attend. So we cannot necessarily impose going to their meeting that they're holding for us and insisting they do an equity committee meeting in association with it. And the November joint meeting, that is hosted by the Air Resources Board, not by us. And so that's their meeting to run the things how they want to run them. And so, you know, putting that on them, it's not something we can do as a body, make them do that. Some of the other comments you make about a meeting within 150 miles of the residence, for the most part, I'd say we get really close to that, but every other year, and we're getting better. We're doing more of that. So we did a town hall meeting. I know you talked about District 2. We did a town hall meeting in Reading last year. So that's, you know, District 2. We had talked about the August meeting being in District 1. So we're making those efforts. And the last thing I'll say is you asked about the commission meeting schedule. I'm going to take something I probably shouldn't say. I picked that schedule. And I run it by the commissioners and say, hey, you guys good with this? So it's not so much we poll them. We ask them some questions about, you know, are there things you can't miss, specifically with the chair and vice chair? And then we put a schedule together. We put it out for them to look at, and then we put it out publicly. So along the lines of how I understand this was built, that's how the commission schedule is done. It's not a find the perfect date for every single person. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for that clarification.
May I speak?
Moving on to comments.
This is Amber Noby. I appreciate your efforts in putting this all together. I know that was a lot of work to put all of your thoughts together and representing everybody in the state of California. So I appreciate that. I also appreciate your efforts in giving us the schedule. I was looking at my calendar based on Mr. Walker's dates and then what you guys presented to us. And I actually had calendared the potential of all of your meetings. So half of the meeting dates that you're recommending, I actually can't attend now because I blocked the other time. So not that you need to make it on behalf of my schedule, but because you guys were able to give us this information far in advance, I was able to just block out and said EAC potential meeting, EAC potential meeting. So I appreciate your efforts doing that. I also appreciate the efforts of being able to go virtual because a lot of us wear multiple hats and we can't get to every meeting in person. And so I appreciate that. It would be very nice if we could put the California Transportation Commission meetings and piggyback our meetings. I know that takes time out of other people's other hats that they wear with their schedules. So I do understand that, you know, blocking like 2.5 days of time or a day and a half of time, some people can't do that. So I do understand it's sort of probably a logistical nightmare trying to make everybody's schedule work when we're all coming from different agencies and organizations. So I appreciate all of your efforts to try and accommodate all of us. So just want to say thank you there.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Sequoia,
Sequoia.
staff. Really quick, I just want to make or bring forward that we brought a draft meeting agenda, which is the same that's being presented today. We brought it in December, and we actually heard no comments from any EAC members on requesting any changes on the calendar. So that's staff report.
This is
Any-
Peggy. Can you hear me?
Yes, Peggy, we can hear you.
Okay, can I ask a question real quick?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think I would propose a friendly amendment, William, Chair Walker. I think that would be, you know, because, so one of the speakers said that they wrote down all of their dates, like in December when I got the note from Sequoia and staff, all the different dates. I put those in my calendar in December for the virtual meetings and then the in-person ones. And I think your ideas are good. Matthew, I do. I mean, well, anyway, Chair Walker, sorry. I think your ideas are good. What I think though is that we can't, I just feel like changing it it's kind of already February. I mean, I wish that I could, you know, move stuff around more in my schedule, but I mean, would you accept that I mean, you know, nothing is ever going to be perfect for all of us. And this week, I think we can all agree on. Would you consider an amendment or, you know, to look at this, look at these dates in a more open way with the committee for 2025? I just feel like, I mean, I think your ideas are, you know, are interesting. It would be interesting to go to the Fort Bragg meeting, and or it would be interesting to go to some of these conferences that you mentioned that are occurring. But you know, we can't go to everything, and I just think that if you would consider, you know, working with staff when they're planning for next year, that could be a way to go, since things are scheduled and a lot of us already have stuff sort of plugged in to our schedules.
I was gonna just,
Would you like to respond? And then we
I
can move on
wanted to
to
quickly
cancel.
respond because I think I can handle part of this right now. Like,
Can we have some other committee members speak really quickly?
oh yeah, I just want to say I would refer this motion to committee.
Well, this is what I'm thinking. This is Cheryl Villegas Walker. Why don't we keep the EAC meeting scheduled for Friday, April 5th on calendar, and have our chair, vice chair, and staff go back and come back with recommendations for the remainder of this year. We all have we should have the April 5th meeting on our agenda. Between now and then, if there are going to be modifications, let us know what those are and why. It would have been very helpful if we had the proposed new schedule in front of us, because I was only able to go through it very quickly and say, well, that date would work, that way it's not going to work. Let me just throw out there, October 16th is the first day of the annual meeting for the League of California Cities. It's also the annual meeting of Cal LAFCO, so that would be a very difficult meeting for folks to take. But instead of chewing up a whole lot more time right now, why don't we just all agree on that April 5 date, and then let's do a doodle poll and see if other dates will work for us. Like the prior speakers have said, all of us our calendars are just jam-packed, and to do this by the seat of our pants is a little bit difficult. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to, Nyla, if you would like to go, committee member Nyla.
Yeah, so I just want to name kind of what I see happening, which is I think we're getting caught up on dates, but it's really not a conversation about dates that we're trying to have here. And I think I think about the comment that happened earlier in public comment when they said that this body has been ineffective. And I think it's because we get caught up on the pragmatic stuff about dates on a calendar, when really I think the undercurrent and what I hear in this conversation is that it's folks at a dais who we've been elevated to this equity advisory committee, but aren't fully understanding our power and how that interacts with the power structure that be. And there's a tension there. And I want to remind everybody that for me, when we talk about equity and making an equitable transportation system for California, we're not talking about putting more meetings on a calendar. The most affluent communities who have the power, who have the access, who have all the amenities that we want to see every community have, they don't have that because they have to go to meetings regularly in every district and that's not how power works and moves. And so I think that one, the suggestion to table this to another discussion or move it to the committee is not going to solve the issue, right? Putting dates on a calendar, adding more dates on a calendar is not going to solve the undercurrent issue, which is this conversation that we need to have, and I think need to have very publicly around what this committee actually has the power to do and not, because if there is no power here, then we don't even need all these meetings.
Hear,
But if
hear.
there is power here, then we need to use these meetings in a more effective way. And so I think we just really have to be conscious. I mean, I understand that I have a higher tolerance for tension in meetings than other people. And I understand that wanting to like table a comment or move it to the other, but unless we work this through, that is the work of equity. Sitting in the discomfort and coming up with a solution. The reason we got here is because we table things for later dates. That's not what we need to do here. That's not what we need to model here. And so if that means we just have to sit through a messy discussion and we have to get to the root of what we actually need to be talking about, which is not dates on a calendar and where we have meetings, I think that that's what we need to do. And if that happens at another meeting, I don't know, but we need to be able to make space for tension in this committee.
And if I may,
Well,
Chair Contreras, we, in our chair and vice chair briefing, that's the space where we try to kind of go over these calendar dates and bring them forward to the committee, and we hope for comments kind of between meetings or in those briefings. And so we welcome continual feedback. We want to know when people are available, not available. And so if we need to continue working with you on dates, if we have an amended, we're happy to work with you on that. However, I do want to just kind of bring back that we have brought these dates to folks. A lot of people are planning around them. And we would very much like to work with you on these dates and maybe kind of in a out of the meeting space so we can hone in on what's right for the group.
Thank you, Sequoia. I wanted to allow committee member Gonzalez next, and then Connie Stewart and Martha Armas Kelly, and then back to Cheryl Walker.
Yeah, thank you so much, Member Gonzalez. So yes, I 100% agree with the comments that Nyla just mentioned. I think we're getting caught up in this whole, government status quo things. I do want to mention, I personally won't be available April 5th. So I would like to have a meeting on the April 16 or 17 for Bragg. I think that's an area of California that I have not had an experience knowing about. So I would appreciate that. I think that, Member Walker brings really good points. And maybe one of the solutions could be to keep the staff recommendation and maybe thinking about adding additional meetings based on the recommendations that Member Walker brought up to us. And maybe that would be like a happy medium for all of us. I don't mind adding more meetings to my calendar. I know, folks are busy. I'm busy. I also wear multiple hats, but I do want to create space for those communities that we haven't reached out to, or not reached out to, but essentially had meetings in those spaces, to have an opportunity to come and meet this body and make their voices heard about what's going on in their communities. Because again, if we're talking about equity, let's have that inclusivity in mind. And for me, I don't mind adding more meetings to our calendar. I do appreciate staff's recommendation and the immense work that they put behind this. And I also want to consider their proposal. And so that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much. And moving on to member Connie Stewart.
Oops, sorry. Hi there, everyone. First I want to say that I want to acknowledge the tension around the purpose of this body and in relationship to the chair's request. And Fort Bragg is not the easiest community to get to for alternative transportation. When I was on the Coastal Commission, we would move around because we were addressing issues in those regions. And so it was essential that we got 2 different locations in there. I do not see this committee as focused on one central district or another. And so my concern is that we move our meeting to a location where only people who have cars can visit because there is no alternative transportation there, which is an equity issue that we should address. But, you know, I think we need to, I think we need to cover the bigger root issue before we start thinking about getting to remote locations just so that we can hear people. You know, for me, it would have taken 3 days based on travel to get to where you are, which is why I apologize that I'm remote. But I think I don't know that we want to, I think we just need to have a better discussion about what our mission is in relationship to how we travel and where we have our meetings. And then what is expected at that meeting from the region? More than just we went there for a greeting, for example, or just a 5-minute update. When we were on the Coastal Commission, it meant we would spend hours talking about what was located in that region and what was going on in that region. So I don't think we're there yet. And a side note, I just happen to know that there's a very big VIP visiting in the region in District 1 and a big meeting that's being planned that day. So I wouldn't even be able to attend the Fort Bragg meeting. Perhaps maybe another option is to talk about some budget augmentations so that members could go and represent us, maybe not just have a meeting, but represent us at other meetings. So I think there's some other ideas, but I want to acknowledge the tension between what our mission is and where our meetings are located.
Thank you so much, Member Stewart. Moving on to Member Cheryl Walker.
Right, so let's take a look at our agenda, folks. Item number 5 is to approve a meeting schedule. And so what I'm proposing is that we all accept the April date, and if something changes between now and then, that's fantastic. Let's move off of this agenda item. If we look at item number 6, and this is exactly where we need to be, what is going to be our priority focus area? I absolutely appreciate the tension in the room. I am frustrated that we do not have a defined mission and that we have not, in my mind, really been in a position yet to move the needle on anything. And I think that we've spent this last year laying the groundwork, which is something that we absolutely positively had to do. But let's move on to the next agenda item, which is where I think we are going to be able to all of us kind of weigh in on what our priority focus areas should be, what our work plan should look like for this coming year. But let's agree on a date and send our chair and vice chair back to work out the rest of our meeting schedule for the rest of the year, because it sounds like staff were very deliberate in the selection of the dates. And I believe that Chair Walker was equally diligent in coming up with a proposal But with this number of people, it's very difficult to do this by committee in this format and in this environment. So I'm going to propose an alternative motion, which is that we adopt the April 5 meeting date for an EAC virtual meeting until further notice.
Well, I'm been raising my hand and waiting quietly, and I'm here and I'm able to speak. I think that we do need to address what's the silence and the pink elephant in the building. And I'm sorry that you feel that way, but we don't get to speak with each other in a way sometimes that you would be included. And I'm totally with Naila. It's sticky and very dicey to go through some of these issues, but we have to talk about them. This is the only place that we can talk about them. So in order for us to be able to open the forum for everyone to speak, this is the opportunity and this is the place. We have to allow ourselves to have that time to be able to address. I am not in agreement with everything that's on that agenda, but I do think that some of the lower hanging fruit that's on that request should be acknowledged. For us to be considered, and a lot of the asks maybe are too much for us right now at this time, but we do need to look at it. And rather than just blanket everything and throw it under the rug, we need to maybe dissect it. And it may take some time for us to dissect it. I'm respectful of all the spaces and the time that people have taken to put together both items and documents. And yes, we have had long conversations, but there have been some good discussions that I don't think that we are able to bring to light. And that's probably why there's so much frustration. We want to be able to be recognized in our communities and in the work that we do and the work that we want to do with other CTC members and jurisdictions and groups. So in order for us to really understand what we're talking about, we need to really look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is we're here because we want to have our voices heard. And if we're not going to be heard, then how are we going to conduct ourselves in a way that we can be heard? And respectfully to all the people involved, everyone that's done their part. I mean, this is a hard effort. This is not something that's going to be easy, and it can't be ran like we've done meetings as usual, because this is new. This is a new forum, new way of doing things, and it feels uncomfortable. So let's enjoy that uncomfortable feeling and recognize that we might have to take some more time to address some of these needs in order for us to be really equitable and addressed. So I'm sorry that it's cumbersome and the time is of the essence, but we're not going anywhere. We're still here. And the people that are dealing with some of the disparities that we're tasked to help are going to be dealing with those disparities as well.
And thank you so much for those comments, Vice Chair Armas Kelly. We're going to move on to Committee Member Christine Williams, who has also been waiting for a minute. I apologize for missing you.
Oh, no, you didn't miss me. I came up late. First, I'm grateful that we're having this conversation. I think it's been a long time building, over a year, with a lot of process conversations. And I think why we are all here is partially because we are frustrated with our experiences and the experiences of our communities. And so I am hopeful that folks in the audience and listening very clearly hear that there is this desire and need for more intentional conversation, both with the commission, but with people who just hold the power and make the decisions that are not working for ourselves and those we live around. So I absolutely want to acknowledge staff efforts in putting the initial calendar together. That is extremely helpful for me, and I am able to block off that time, but it absolutely sounds like we need to have more time to talk about these systemic challenges that continue to sort of, cast their pall on these conversations. And so I appreciate the messiness, quote unquote, and the dialogue of all of this, because I feel like there is some accessibility in that allows us to express ourselves more freely. And I look forward to more of that. So thanks everyone for conversation today.
Abigail Jackson, I saw your hand up.
Thanks. Hi, this is Abby Jackson from CalSTA. I think, William Chair Walker, some of these meetings you brought up, I've never even heard of them, but I'm new to CalSTA, right? Worked here less than a year, so that's a good point, is maybe these are venues we could consider. So I think there's no reason why we can't keep talking about how we fold in these opportunities to increase, like, maybe the time we spend together in some way. And I would suggest maybe considering, like, we could keep discussing this, or perhaps an alternative is to like agree on an April date today if possible, but I'm not making a motion, just making those comments. Thanks.
Yeah, let me just add to Abby's comments. We can definitely take feedback and continue to iterate if we need to. We could do it with the chair, the vice chair. We could do it with another team of folks who want to keep walking through with us. But yeah, staff is here to support the needs of the committee, and this is why we presented a draft. This is why we want to have this discussion now, and also understanding that this is bigger than just these dates. Very much understood. But yeah, we're open to taking it back and moving things around, and stacking functions as needed, as long as like we can kind of keep it within the realm of possibilities. So let's keep talking, and we can adjust with you all.
And as temporary chair, does anyone else have anything else they would like to say before I make my remarks? I think she already spoken. I just wanted to reiterate that from the first meeting that we had as the commission, I asked what tangible power and what tangible influence do we actually have over the decisions that are being made at these three agencies. I think many of our voices have been heard and we have been ignored. Freeway expansions are still happening despite committee outcry. There is continuing investment in car-dependent infrastructure, which leaves communities of color and low-income communities behind. And the tension in the room is that we are unable to meet, we're unable to discuss with each other. I really wish I had heard Chair Williams' proposal, was able to hear about it before this meeting, and we are unable to communicate for fear of breaking regulations. And it is not our fault that we don't exactly know the rules and how the procedure goes. And I would ask that staff do keep that in mind. This is new for some of us, and I don't think any of us are intentionally trying to break rules. But we do need to have these discussions. I think that we could have future framework of how can we have the people who are making the decisions in the room while we have these conversations. That is very important, because there's no moral, legal, or even economic reason as to why some of the decisions around car-dependent infrastructure is being made today, such as widening freeways. There's no moral, legal, equity. There's no reason why we should continue to do that, and why we are continuing to spend money demolishing people's homes, polluting the air. And the tension once again lies in, we have made our voices very clear, but are the people that are making these decisions going to be in the room with us? Are they going to listen to us? What actual tangible influence and power we have? Because with all due respect, I can be continuing the work that I do, but not in this committee. And I feel that many of us feel the same way. We will continue to do the work that we want to do, that we are inspired to do every day, with or without this committee. But it is important that since we are on this committee, this commission, that we hold space for these conversations, that I appreciate Chair Walker being inventful and trying to find solutions to the tension that we all face. And I appreciate everyone's comments today. But once again, we need to hold space. And with that, I'd like to make a motion to return the chair back to.
Don't do that yet.
Okay.
Let me speak one more time. So,
Oh, and there
There's
is one public comment from Fanny.
there'll be public comment. So yeah, I just want to wrap up to say that, this motion's not about the dates, as Naila eloquently stated first, and other people have echoed. And there are key people that should be at the chair meetings that are not there, and make it very difficult for work to be done when they're not present. So the reason that this motion wasn't brought before I was chair was because I couldn't bring this motion because there was no structure for us to bring it. And I've already been criticized for going to CTC meetings and speaking, and I never speak on behalf of this committee when I have an opinion to share, unless the committee told me to share it, which this committee has never told me to share anything because we've never had the ability to tell me to share anything. But Naila, myself, Martha, Anna, like, and people who I'm missing, there are several of us that go to meetings on a regular basis to represent our communities because we're not able to represent this committee. And we're coming up on 14, 15 months of that. I will say that I'm happy to keep the calendar that was presented. If staff is open to figuring out how to make sure that everyone who's here has the ability to participate as effectively as certain members who have the privilege to do so. And I don't know if waking up at 5 a.m. to write this motion was a privilege, but you know, I think that we need to create spaces so that we can have more than just the champions that don't, like, I don't have kids. Like, I don't have as many responsibilities as many people on this committee. So I just want to give some crib notes to Chair Contreras, who's eloquently led this item. You're going to make sure that there are no more board comments, allow staff if they need to make comments, and then hand it over to our clerks for public comment, and then we can vote.
Thank you so much for the guidance. I appreciate that. Any more comments from the committee or staff?
I just want to go back to saying that I really hope that we take some of, I really hope that we take some of the items that were included, not necessarily the dates, but some of the outcomes and the deliverables of his plan into consideration that will help move our EAC forward and in a equitable and vocal way so that each community is connected with the EAC. And it may not be something that we're going to do right now, but not to put that away, that part of those low-hanging fruits that are available to us.
Thank you so much.
Simple solutions. Thank you.
Actually, can I just amend my motion? So in the interest of time, and this is sloppy, but like, I want to make sure we can get to other items on the agenda, and I'm really not trying to take all this space, but I'm gonna move that we approve the calendar that staff has presented. And my second motion is that we poll our committee to determine what their availability is for the rest of the year. And that we take all that information to a committee that can come up with a recommendation for the future. And I want to know the dates that people can't make it to meetings, because like, if we can't make it to meetings and we can't have quorum, there's no point. So definitely, and the problem is right now, I don't know how to tell you how to communicate that with me because it would violate Bagley-Keene. So we're going to get to more of that towards the latter half of the meeting. But that's my substitute motion, not to knock what Cousin Walker put forth, but I just want to put something forth simple. We can always amend a calendar. So let's put the calendar that staff has brought forth and continue to have these conversations, poll our membership, and delegate this motion to a future ad hoc committee. That's my substitute motion.
May I second that? Second amendment to keep the staff schedule to do the poll or whatever polling you guys need to do, and then circle back on it. So moving the agenda forward as proposed.
And you get to say any comment from the board or the public.
I don't know if we can ask staff this, so I do have a question. Are we able to ask staff to put a more comprehensive calendar list of these meetings like Walker had suggested, so that way we're able to see where and provide input where we believe we can also be the most impactful. I don't want to have it like burden anyone's workflow, but this seems like it would be helpful.
We actually have that calendar. Destiny did a great job of, it's very easy to kind of read. So we're happy to share it and we're happy to kind of like take this and iterate as we need to and do a doodle poll. And also there are a couple of locations that haven't been like fully decided. So that's something we'd like to work on as part of this with you all.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
we can definitely share those calendars.
And we still have one last public comment from Fanny Guzman.
Hi, everybody. My name is Fanny. I am from occupied Tongaba and Shumeshland, which is in Boyle Heights. But I'm here. We drove all the way from El Sereno, 7 hours, a little bit over 7 hours. I think it's important what you guys were proposing to make it accessible to communities, because imagine how Alejandra mentioned that you hear them, but you're not paying attention. Imagine how we feel as community members when we drive that many hours and we're not being heard or listened to. And so I think it's important and it's equitable for communities that are being impacted by the work that these agencies do to be able to have access to being able to be heard, be giving public comment. It is important and it should be inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. Appreciate that. Yes, sorry.
Yes, thank you. We did receive one virtual comment during this period. This comes from Commissioner Adonia Lugo. She writes, I would like to support Mr. Walker's suggestion that each Caltrans district form its own EAC. I look forward to seeing how to help move that process along and to learn from Caltrans staff how it aligns with community engagement and equity capacity building work they are undertaking. Thank you. And that concludes all virtual comments received.
And
may I make well, no, we have to vote on that, so no, but you can ask to speak again. Yeah, yeah, you can speak, go ahead. Go ahead.
yes, so would you like to propose your motion again? Is that the correct order?
Sure, I'll go ahead and restate my motion, and I love that Commissioner Lugo is listening, because I can add what she stated to my motion, because that's got a lot of power. Let's talk about power. So I'll state my motion again, and I can also provide it in writing for our clerks, just in case, because I know how it is. I've been in y'all's seats. So the Walker motion as it stands, as the new substitute motion, is to accept or approve the schedule as proposed by staff in the agenda, to ensure that staff works with the chair and vice chair to pull each of the members on their availability for the remainder of the year. And that I'm going to add what Commissioner Lugo said, to continue to explore how to have local level EAC meetings in the 12 district areas, and continue to discuss the original substitute motion at a future ad hoc committee to be determined. So that is the motion. It's been, and I'm going to hand it back to our chair, but I'm just clarifying it because I made the motion and it's been seconded by Note.
I re-second the motion.
Thank you.
And
you can now take a vote if there's no further public.
Okay, if there's no more further public comment
board comment
and board comment, can we take a vote?
Thank you. Vice Chair Armis Kelly.
Aye.
Alexandria Contreras.
Yes.
Michael Despain. Ana Gonzalez.
Yes.
Herb Hastings. Peggy Martinez.
Approve.
Amber Novi.
Yes.
Naila Pope Harden.
Aye.
Axel Santana.
Yes.
Connie Stewart.
Aye.
Randy Torres Van Vleck.
Aye.
Stella Ursua. Cheryl Villegas Walker.
Yes.
Christine Williams.
Yes.
Chair Walker.
Aye.
Interim Chair, the motion is approved.
Thank you so much. And now do we have to vote on this? Okay, great. Hand the chair back to you.
Great. Thank you, Chair Contreras. And I mean, this is like beautiful to me. Like, you hand the chair off and like you get to hear a different perspective. And that's something that I hope that we can continue to do. Like, need to be the person calling everything, but it's gonna be weird. We don't want to vote on it every time, but that's what the subcommittee processes are for and ad hoc committees. I want to make sure that we get to have that type of leadership. We're way behind. So what I want to do before we do anything else right now is just take a break. It's 2:20. We'll come back in 15 minutes. It'll give folks a chance to stretch their legs and breathe, and we'll come back to the agenda because we had a scheduled break at 1:45. So I want to honor that. Does that sound good for folks? 15 minutes?
Yeah. Sounds great.
Almost all back. How are we online? Are online folks back at their virtual diocese? That's a hard word.
We're back. I'm back.
Great. How are y'all doing?
All right.
Doing good?
Good.
I know I'm asking and you can't really say, but well, we're gonna come back at 2:37 p.m. This is the February 13th EAC meeting for folks just joining us. And we are gonna I'm gonna ask the committee to approve a quick verbal amendment to our agenda. Too. We're gonna with the committee's pleasure or approval, I'm gonna recommend that we take item 8, which is our report from Civic Thread, immediately, since they've been waiting and patiently, and they weren't at a time certain, but I'm gonna make it that. And then we're gonna take 6, 7, and 9 together. They're kind of the same thing. It's just report backs on the surveys we all took. And then we'll go back to the regular agenda items 10, 11, and 12. Comment for 6, 7, and 9 will be all at once. So if you have comments on either our equity advisory committee priority focus areas, the work plan that we're doing, our expanded leadership structure, or our ex officio members, that's items 6, 7, and 9, and we will take that comment all at once. So that's my recommendation for the remainder of the meeting. Can someone move that and can someone second it?
A second.
Oh, I can just do that. Hey, all right. So, that's how we're gonna do it. There's no objections, right? Cool. From Civic Thread, we have, well, actually, since I don't have I do have names, but and it's for me to do. Dave Moore, community planning specialist with the Sacramento-based nonprofit Civic Thread. This group is focused on equity in the built environment. I'm going to hand it to my fellow member, Ms. Pope Harden, to give a brief introduction.
Well, I'm really excited about this presentation today. Civic Thread is an organization that I've been working with for at least 15 years before they were Civic Thread and were Walk Sacramento. This organization really, when I talk about equity work and how we show up in communities, I often point to the work that Civic Thread does. It's the small, simple things, the way that this organization fills in the gaps, the way that this organization shows up in community, meets community where they are. I'm really excited for you guys to hear this presentation and learn more about what this organization does. And Dave, this is my guy. We've worked together on some projects and been in the trenches together, and I'm really excited for you guys to hear about what they do.
Try to live up to that.
Welcome.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you, committee members, for having me and allowing me to present today. As mentioned, my name is David Moore. I'm the community planning specialist at Civic Thread. Our work takes place across the SACOG region, primarily in Sacramento County, with growing efforts in Yuba, Sutter, Yolo, and Sacramento County. Next, do I have control of slides? No. Do I just yell next slide? Yep. In a controlled voice? Okay. Next slide, please. So many of the equitable practices that I'm going to talk about relatively briefly are related to transportation, but can be extrapolated to broadening planning processes as a whole. So I'll go through kind of high level and then some very specific equity engagement practices and philosophies that we subscribe to and hope broaden out beyond local regional efforts. You can change the slide. So the majority of the work that we do is community engagement, and a majority of those contracts that we get are for transportation-related projects. But again, these are universal. We strive to change the metrics of what successful community engagement looks like, from overall numbers, overall number of events, to say that you engage this many people, to looking at who you engaged, and looking at broadly those hard to reach communities. So our older adults, our youth, low income minorities, these are the groups that we need to be spending extra effort on to engage in community engagement, to have their voices heard in the planning processes. And so some of the ways that we do that, first is addressing language. Language barriers are, if you cannot understand what is being presented to you or what is being advertised as a possibility for you to participate in, it is going to be very difficult. So all of our materials are translated into culturally relevant languages. We have live interpretation at all of our events. Again, I think as is discussed earlier via your meeting discussion, it is very difficult to show up in spaces, virtual or in person. And so when people do, when they offer their time and their expertise, we want to compensate them as best we can, oftentimes with as few strings attached. That'll look like Visa or MasterCard gift cards. We rarely can do cash. And then lastly, we want to be very intentional about who we're meeting with and where we're meeting them, right? Bringing everybody to a library, even a community center or a government building, is probably not the best practice. Ultimately, we want to meet people where they are in places that feel safe to them. The image here is an example of meeting with the Slavic community at a church that they frequent, so that they can feel comfortable engaging with us in practices. So again, that's just some of the high level community engagement work that we do. And we can go to the next slide. Planning itself takes a very long time. I'm sure that's not news to anybody. But for those communities who lack political capital, who lack the time, and who lack the know-how to engage in planning processes, those changes take even longer or may not come at all. One of the ways that we address this is a lot of times community members will come to us and say, hey, we have a problem. Maybe it's a corridor, maybe it's an intersection that's experiencing a high number of traffic fatalities, serious injuries, close calls. And we will go to that community in person, meet with them to discuss where and what their issues are, perform a walk audit, and then we will take all the information that we gathered from that and submit that using our leverage, right, as Civic Thread, who has that representation in planning spaces, to put that report forward so that when an agency gets funding, they can implement some of the recommendations that those community members were highlighting. And another one is participatory budgeting. So really putting both the knowledge of what are available tools for community members to use and giving them the money, saying this is a portion of the budget. We want you to decide where that funding is going to go to achieve the successes and achieve the projects and solutions that you want to see. So those are some of the community-led initiatives, among others, that we perform in. And then you can go to the next slide. Ultimately, the disproportionate harms that are taking place in our historically underinvested communities, communities with high populations of low income and minority populations, are a result of two things. One, great intentionality of exclusion, and the other one is relying on almost the sole metric of race. In order to undo that, we need to use those same metrics but reverse them, right? We need to have great intentionality, and we need to start including race in all of the metrics that we use for allocating funding. The example I have highlighted here is from the Sacramento's Transportation Priorities Plan of how to allocate funding to the broad number of projects we have. It was the first time that the city used race as a metric for how to allocate those funds. And while it was an equal point value as the rest of them, we would have liked to have seen it weighted. This is a step in the right direction in terms of how we can allocate funding to address historical harms. We're seeing this at the federal level too, with reconnecting communities, grants of this nature, as well as the Justice 40 initiative. So excited to see that there's progress, but we'd like to see it continue and see it even broader. Next slide. Of course, getting resources to communities who have historically not seen them can only do so much if we can't keep the people who represent the cultures and who have created the cultures in those communities in place once they get funding and once they get those resources. So Civic Thread has long been working in anti-displacement initiatives, whether that is responding to public comment and policies or actively reaching out to members who live around corridors that are looking to receive funding, such as Stockton Boulevard, which this is a public engagement event, just kind of screenshot from that we did, to learn what are the issues that they're facing, what are the solutions that they would like to see, and again, get that firsthand knowledge so we can again begin addressing that directly and including that in comments moving forward that maybe we don't have public engagement opportunities to do. And the other one is we've actively been participating in Sacramento Investment Without Displacement. We are very close. That is moving before the initial, not city council, but initial approval council in a couple of weeks, which will create a legally binding community benefits agreement for those being affected by UC Davis's Aggie Square. Once that gets hopefully passed by city council in the near future, it will help retain a lot of the community members who are already there, who are going to see benefits from that investment rather than just displacement to the outer edges of the city. Next slide. Finally, this one is very transportation specific, but we want to be and strive to be as cognizant of the growing rhetoric, right, to drive less, to walk, to bike, to use mobility devices and transit, with the understanding that for many people in many communities, the infrastructure to do that safely does not exist. So asking for people to do that, we have done grants. Franklin TDM was an example of a grant that we had done, again, to try to encourage people to get out of their cars for those that have the choice, right, in the first place, and walk or bike. And we had a very difficult time engaging this because, as you can see, there are hardly bike lanes. There are hardly even sidewalks, if at all, right? So we just want to be very conscious that we need to get the infrastructure in place before we can advocate for people to stop driving and use alternative modes. And some of that work, again, just to acknowledge, was done for Sacramento County through a CalFresh Healthy Livings grant. And that is the end of my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions, and thank you for having me.
Questions from the committee?
Peggy here. Can you hear me?
Yes, Member Martinez, please go ahead.
Why, thank you. Well, thank you. I loved that presentation, David. My name is Peggy Martinez. I am an EAC committee member. I happen to be sight impaired and represent the disability community. And I'm curious about your engagement with folks with disabilities, given that we basically comprise roughly 25% of the population, from all ethnicities, economic, socioeconomic backgrounds, ages, all of that. So I'm just interested in learning how Civic Thread engages with folks with disabilities as you do your work.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question. I would say one of the primary ways, that there are a number, throughout community engagement processes, we like to engage community advisory groups. So this is a core group that we reach out to apply for the position, compensated. But we'd like to create structures where we're seeking representation from various groups to make up that advisory body to us. And one of the groups that we have just a standing position open for is the disability advocacy groups. And so that's one where we seek that direct input. Other avenues are, again, right, the intentionality of where we're hosting events. So making sure that it is accessible for people who may use mobility assistance devices. All of our materials utilizing best practices for differently, for equity and able-bodied, differently abled individuals.
Sweet.
The correct phrasing, but yes.
People with disabilities is probably a good way to go.
Yeah, thank you. People with disabilities. Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you, Member Martinez and Mr. Moore. Other comments from the committee? Thank you, Member Villegas Walker, and thank you for helping with the visual for the hand. Hi, cousin.
So, hey, thank you. So my question is, what have we identified as the barriers to why more people are not engaged either in public transportation or active transportation? We've talked about a couple during this meeting today, long wait times and disability and access. But what are some of the other barriers? It seems to me a lot of the conversation is, as long as I can jump in my car and find a place to park, I'm going to that's going to be my primary choice. How do we move people out of their cars and into public transportation? What are those barriers?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that it's twofold, right? One, we need to address incentivizing public transit far better than it is. Like you said, it's unreliable. We've met with high school students, general public, all convey the same notion that it's very difficult to get to. It's very difficult to access, again, from that safety concern. Sacramento in particular, and it is not solely Sacramento, right? There are many places throughout the state that are experiencing extreme weather activities and extreme conditions. So in Sacramento, when it is triple digits and there are no shade or benches or anywhere to wait for your bus for 30 minutes to an hour, it is, for people who have the choice, not going to incentivize you, right? So from a comfort standpoint, from increasing the number of buses per route standpoint, those all need to go up. The other aspect of this, there's very little incentive not to drive, right? Parking is very easy, especially in Sacramento. There is very little, it's just accessible, frankly. And so ultimately we need to restructure the ways in which we pay for vehicles, in which it costs drivers to operate vehicles, and we need to do it in an equitable way, but there needs to be a greater cost for driving.
Thank you, Vice Chair Almascali. And
Go ahead.
followed by, were you first? Followed by Member Contreras.
No, go ahead.
I guess my question for you is if there are 3 things that you would like us to advocate when we do have meetings with people who do make these decisions, what, off the top of your head, what are the top 3 things you would like us to specifically bring up in these conversations?
I would say one that, again, I think pointing back to that the metrics for which we address investment and considerations needs to include race. I think that universally there needs to be greater like speed from vehicles. I think from a transportation perspective, we need to slow down streets significantly. And then third, again, I would point back to the anti-displacement. It's just not going to benefit people to secure this funding and to secure the resources if the people currently living there are not going to be able to benefit from them.
Thankfully, we have one of those on our agenda today. Member Contreras, thank you. Vice Chair Kelly.
Hi, and from my perspective, I was just wondering from my perspective, in the communities that I live in and even in the Bay, right, there's a lot of issues related around crime and safety. And I didn't hear you mention too much about that. And I've lived here, I've used the light rail and I've been on the, transit. So I know that there are some areas that are not represented, right? People that don't ride because of just the fear of getting, in a situation. Like you said, not enough lighting, not enough shelter and things like that. So what's your perspective on that? And have you worked with other organizations or groups that are related to tribal entities? Because for us, it is an issue of connecting, right? Connecting with spaces where we can travel and have that infrastructure to be part of the mainstream transportation system.
Absolutely. I think to address your second point first, we have attempted, I would admit that we have struggled to really engage tribal communities. It is one of those hard to reach communities that we are still trying to figure out the best practice for, and still routinely try to seek advice and intentionality around engaging them. To the first point of safety and crime, it is a good point. It is one that falls a little bit out of our realm of expertise on advising on. I will say that at any point in time when we are discussing crime or security, we do our best to remind everybody that safety means different things for different people. So for communities of color, safety means different things than a more affluent white community who may see police presence as a safer community versus that community of color where the presence of police is going to be the exact opposite. It is going to increase the levels of danger and increase the levels of harmful interaction. So no, we don't really have like a toolbox for specifically addressing that. We are very just intentional around using the design of our built environment to no longer need police intervention around that. The other element of this is economic opportunity, right? Crime is a result of lack of opportunity to some degree. And so trying to increase economic opportunities for broader public, and again, for those who have been historically removed from access to economic opportunities, are a means of indirectly but directly addressing kind of challenges with.
And I tend to agree with you in that area. I mean, if we had more banks, a more robust, infrastructure and businesses, then folks wouldn't have those empty spaces or those empty buildings or apartment complexes that they have
Exactly.
to pass through.
Yeah.
order to catch the bus or be part of the system. But I appreciate your presentation, and I was more out of curiosity because those are some of the things that, as an organizer also, we look at is how to bring forth that narrative for safety and also other tribal entities that often are forgotten. Thank you.
No, I appreciate the comment.
Are there further comments from the committee? Public comment. Oh, did you? Sure. Public comment, please.
Thank you, Chair Walker. We did not receive any requests from our virtual attendees to comment on this item. Thank you.
No public comment in the room? Great. So I'm really appreciative of your work, and I'm hoping, like, one of the things that I was able to do this month was I attended a presentation from LA Metro's Equity and Race Office. And a lot of what you have in these slides is aligned with a lot of the work that they're doing in their communities. And I'm hoping to figure out how we can incorporate the examples that you have given us into the work that we do here at the AAC. So very appreciative of you joining us today and look forward to partnering with you.
Yeah, thank you for having me again. Appreciate it.
So for folks following along on their agenda, that was item number 8. I want to acknowledge Director Taylor, who's entered the room. Hello. I know you were here earlier, but I didn't get a chance to say hi, Director Tanisha Taylor of the Commission. So we're going to go back to item 6, but we're also going to combine that with items 7 and 9. Item 6 is the 2024 EAC Priority Focus Areas and Interagency Work Plan. That's going to be presented by Ms. Abrams from Caltrans, followed by items 7 and 9, a discussion on our expanded leadership structure and on ex officio membership to be presented by Ms. Erasmus of the Commission.
Chair
Yes.
Walker, I think a yes to 6 and 7 together. However, I would like to decouple 9 from the discussion because we haven't had a chance to talk about ex officio on its own yet. And so the intention behind that is just to have a separate discussion kind of away from expanded leadership to give it the light that it's been needing. So I just ask that 6 and 7 together and then discussion, but if we could take 9 out and have it on its own.
How do our members feel? All right, so it means we'll have public comment for both 6, 7 as followed by 9. And so we are a bit behind. I'm going to actually hand the chair over to Vice Chair Armas Kelly. I will just say, since we're not combining 6, 7, and 9, the other motion that I brought, which can't be approved today because it wasn't noticed, and there's no action to be taken on these items today, is a motion about our expanded leadership as well as our ex officio membership. And I will go ahead and just preview it right now because I'm not going to be here at the end of that item. So I'll just let you know that for the EAC committee structure, I'm recommending that we have 3 committees and that those committees are based both on geography as well as policy areas. The first geographies would be North, Central, and South. The North being mostly the Sacramento area and members from the Sacramento area and anywhere north of it, as well as Humboldt. Central being the Bay Area and the Central Valley areas of Stockton and Merced, San Joaquin and Merced counties, as well as the accompanying Caltrans districts. And the South area being Southern California, primarily the greater Los Angeles area, the SCAG area, San Diego. And so it's all in the packet. And I wanted to make sure that we had a discussion about ex officio membership at the committee level. It's obviously not on an action item today. And the main reason why is I wanted to just illuminate, we're going to be losing some great leadership on this committee. Not that, I mean, all leadership's equal. Everyone brings what we bring. But one of our members, it's a founding member, maybe stepping away in the near future. And I know she doesn't like the spotlight, but like, I want to create spaces for folks who put in this work to continue to be able to put in the work. And I understand the structures of the state, like, and I understand our requirements of having ex officio membership, but it's important that we remember that, like, it's these same structures that have prevented us from being able to have the conversations that we're starting to have today. And, you know, as long as like we make recommendations to do things and folks don't think that we have the right to make those recommendations, we're probably going to need to have more on that ex officio committee than what staff thinks. So that's my personal opinion. But since I won't be here for the remainder of that item, I'm going to hand the chair over to Ms. Armas Kelly. And in the event I'm still here, I can say some things. Ms. Armas Kelly, can you take us to 6, 7, and 9 and introduce our presenters, please?
Thank you. That would be 2024 EAC part. The 2024 EAC Priority Focus Areas and Interagency Work Plan. Notes, here we have Carolyn Abrams, who will be presenting on this matter. Carolyn will provide the presentation. This item is intended to inform the discussion around tab number 7. The work plan carries over from December, and the priorities were identified through 2 member surveys and committee conversations. We have slides for presentation, and we are open for discussion.
Wonderful. Thank you, Vice Chair. Good afternoon, folks. Tab 6 is focused on the EAC priority focus areas and the interagency work plan. So as you all recall, at the executive meeting on December 8th, back in 2023, committee members discussed their priorities for this upcoming year. There were several key areas that rose to the top, which are reflected on the next slide. And then further along in this presentation, we will feature a brief recap of the interagency work plan with a focus on the items that will be brought to the committee in the upcoming quarter, so the next few months. Next slide, please. So at the December meeting, we had a really robust discussion around the priorities of this body. And what rose to the top was that the conversations that this committee has are really expanded to include more holistic discussions about equity and justice beyond transportation. And I think some of that has already come up in today's conversation. Another item that was really clearly identified was this idea that we need to more effectively communicate the work of this committee. The other item that was recommended by committee members was an improved geographic and community-based outreach of the work of the committee. And I think there are already some recommendations and proposals being put forward on that item. And then another thing that became very clear was that there's this desire for more learning opportunities, educational presentations, things that address for a baseline level of knowledge for folks to actually provide advisory input. They need to understand the policies and the processes that Caltrans, CTC, and CalSTA already have in place. And then this also extended to a request around understanding the transportation planning and funding at a regional, state, and federal level. And we think that this is an item where, with that educational information provided to this committee on an ongoing basis, that would then help inform the advisory support that you all can provide to our agencies. And then finally, the last discussion item that came out of that priority discussion was really focused on this idea of the ad hoc subcommittees and the ability to come up with those focus areas and a mechanism for actually achieving the work of this committee. And then related to that, maybe beyond an ad hoc subcommittee, there was the recommendation that we identify areas just of general interest that this committee can explore at a future point in time. Next slide. So I'm not going to go into great detail about these items today in the interest of time, but as you all know, CalSTA, the Commission, and Caltrans are continuing to build out the interagency work plan, and this really outlines the programs, the policies, and the processes that will need advisory support from this committee. So the detailed information about each of these items is included in the staff report. But we're happy to answer questions today if folks have already looked at that information. And if you haven't, we encourage you to read that staff report in great detail and then send us your questions either via email, or we're happy to chat about them at the next meeting as well. So the next few slides are really going to capture the items that each of our respective agencies have identified for robust engagement in this upcoming quarter. And these engagement opportunities were all previewed at the executive meeting in December. So nothing new or no surprises on here. And we will continue to provide as staff details about this work for the committee, including the timeline, the deliverables, and how the committee guidance will factor into agency decision-making on each of these items. And then we will continue to discuss in tab 7 how we actually want to achieve this work. So the mechanisms that we want to put in place to have a structure for the committee members to work on these items. So really quickly, you'll see on this current slide for Caltrans, we want continued involvement with the Transportation Equity Index, or the EQI. We're also going to be bringing forward information and some potential engagement opportunities related to what Caltrans currently does around equitable community engagement, our guidelines and our policies, where we've been and where we're heading. And then also tied to this is the Caltrans System Investment Strategy, or CSIS. Next slide, please. On the CTC side, there are a lot of programs where the guidelines language we are looking to update and receive the input from this committee to ensure that these programs are designed in an equitable manner. So you'll see on here, we have the Active Transportation Program, or ATP. We have the Local Transportation Climate Adaptation Program, SB1 programs. We also have SHOP, which is the State Highway Operations and Protection Program. There will also be an opportunity to inform the tolling guidelines that CTC is working on. You've also heard a little bit about the equity and road charge statewide outreach. And finally, the state and local transportation needs assessment. Next slide. And then on the CalSTA side, we'll be continuing to revisit the CalSTA strategic plan. Some of you have already been involved in the process to inform what that strategic plan looks like moving into these coming years. You'll also hear today more about the draft Housing and Transportation Interagency Work Group anti-displacement memo. And then coming back to this again, which was mentioned in the December meeting, we have the Transit Transformation Task Force. And finally, the Climate Action Plan for Transportation Infrastructure, and future updates to that as well. Next slide. So we'll hold discussion until after tab 7, but I just want to summarize that these are the items that our agencies plan to bring forward to this body, which are also in alignment with the committee scope and then what the committee has prioritized within that. So we will continue to provide this information both via email and at future meetings. You've probably already on some of these items received emails, saying that we're going to host a briefing or another convening. Some of these might make more sense to bring forward at a full committee meeting. Others might make more sense to be addressed through a subcommittee. So there are a lot of options, right? But basically, bottom line, staff will continue to work with the committee members to ensure that there's a really clear understanding both of your capacity and time commitments, and also where we can actually leverage your input. So stay tuned for more. But with that, I'll close this presentation and we can move into tab 7 to discuss the mechanisms for how we'll actually achieve this work.
Okay, moving on to tab 7, which that will be led by Sequoia Erasmus, and the discussion is on an expanded leadership structure.
Great, thanks Carolyn, and thanks Vice Chair Kelly and Chair Walker and committee members. So in continuation of kind of a recap of the work plan that was that's been introduced and was kind of more deliberately introduced in December, we want to dive into how we imagine doing this work as part of expanded leadership structure. So next slide, please. This work, again, builds upon discussions regarding our priority focus areas, leadership roles and responsibilities, survey results, and interagency work plan items. As part of our committee charter, we have the ability and the power to create ad hoc subcommittees and permanent subcommittees. And first of all, the duties of kind of the officers and our chair duties of the chair is to preside over committee meetings, and vice chair is to preside over committee meetings when the chair is absent. And additionally, as part of our expanded leadership structure that we've been discussing over the past couple months, additional vice chairs or subcommittee chairs may take on additional non-administrative responsibilities of the committee, and again, requires members to volunteer to hold these roles. So as part of a survey that was presented to members in January or December, two committee members expressed the availability to take on additional leadership as part of a vice chair role. And so that kind of leads us into thinking about if we have this kind of very robust work plan, a lot of things we want to get done. We've sort of engaged in the beginning of a conversation around subcommittees. We really want to kind of put in front of the group, again, that the development of ad hoc subcommittees can provide leadership opportunities without requiring long-term, kind of more permanent commitments from folks that are on the committee. So again, at any point, the committee can develop ad hoc committees. It doesn't have to be already existing on the agenda. And permanent subcommittees can be formed by amending the charter. A majority of the chair, a majority of the committee or the chair may form the committees as needed. And ad hoc subcommittees will dissolve once the purpose of the subcommittee has been achieved, or 1 year from their formation, whichever is earlier. And the chair is an ex officio member of all subcommittees but has no vote. And they may delegate to the vice chair their ex officio membership on any subcommittees. And that's again in the charter. I will move on. So at previous meetings, at our December meeting of the executive committee, we discussed our 2024 priorities, thought about focus areas for future subcommittees, and we started the conversation and kind of developing what ad hoc subcommittees could look like, could be focusing on, that could benefit the priorities of the committee. In addition to what Carolyn has presented in tab 6, other areas of focus that were brought forward by members of the committee at that meeting included tolling. Oh, sorry, Brandy, I forgot to say next slide. I'm doing my own slides and I forgot you were not. Next slide, please. Let me brain connect with you. Okay, then high-speed rail, which isn't under the purview of our interagency program, but is one of the topic areas that we would be happy to bring people to the table, have an informational workshop, kind of educational, getting folks up to speed. Our Senate Bill 1 funding programs, which the committee has had opportunities to in the past, have some, I think, pretty great engagement in the guidelines and project or in evaluation of the community engagement part of actual projects. So that's coming up again, and I'm excited to have that as an actionable feature on this previous discussion. We've also heard that the California-Mexico border region is an area that we would like the committee to focus more on. Transportation funding, again, an ongoing topic area where we want to continue education and understanding of. And then public participation in social justice. So again, this was the kind of a list compiled from our last meeting, and this is in addition to many of the topics that we've discussed and heard before. Next slide, please. So regarding ad hoc subcommittees, per Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act rules, any ad hoc subcommittees with more than 2 members will hold publicly noticed meetings. So less than 2 can kind of have conversations about topics. Stakeholders, community members, and policy experts may absolutely be consulted to inform the work of ad hoc committees. And in fact, we would encourage it. And subcommittees would be expected to use publicly noticed meetings of the committee to report on any work that they've completed. Next slide, please. So moving forward, and this will be my last slide of this deck, committee members are encouraged to identify additional areas of focus for subcommittees or additional leadership positions based on 2024 priorities addressed within this slide deck, as well as the interagency work plan. And that is the end of my slides, and happy to go into discussion now. Thanks.
We're going to open it up to EAC members, and we have.
Thank you very much, Carolyn and Sequoia, for your reports. I just wanted to briefly let you all know that in the chair's report packet that I handed out today here, there is an item that says Walker motion on expanded leadership model and ex officio membership. And just so that people are aware of the ad hoc committee recommendations that I've made, rather than waiting for recommendations to come in, I just suggested that based on geography and the policy areas outlined both in the slides here and then the questions that I sent out in my survey in January, that staff sent out on my behalf. Let me make that for the record, I'm sorry. That the following 3 ad hoc committees and 7 ad hoc subcommittees be developed. There's an outreach and North committee that's going to be with members Despain, Martinez, Novi, Pope Hardin, and Stewart. A transformation central committee, members Armas Kelly, Contreras, Hastings, Walker, and Williams. And the policy South committee that's with members Gonzalez, Santana, Torres Van Vleck, Ursula, and Villegas Walker. I also created 7 ad hoc subcommittees, which conform to the rule of 2 as dictated by, or I'm sorry, stipulated by the California Attorney General's office. I'm doing this off the top of my head. There was no pun intended or anything there. And just trying not to read a 4-page document. And the members are A through G, two members apiece for each of those letters. Hastings Martinez, Armas Kelly Williams, Contreras Novi, Despain Stewart, Gonzalez Torres Van Vleck, Ursula Villegas Walker, Pope Hardin Santana. And I left myself off of it since I'm an ex officio member of committees. So that's what I'm presenting just so that we can get something going. It also fits with the virtual meetings that were proposed by staff, because if these committees wanted to, those virtual meetings could be used as a time to be meeting. So that's what I wanted to throw out. And each of the issue areas on the slides, I assigned to each of the committee areas, just so that we can start. And if we decide this isn't the structure we want, we don't need it, we can revisit it. From what I understand, based upon public meeting rules, we can't vote on this until our next meeting. But it's something for you to have so that we don't have to wait until another meeting to consider something. You're also welcome to bring forth your recommendations or amendments to this plan. And as long as you send it to staff, they can be presented at the next meeting as well.
Chair Walker, I'll just add that you can make ad hoc subcommittees today.
Okay.
Yeah, that's either per your direction or committee vote.
Okay, great. So per direction, meaning we don't have to vote on it. Well, I don't want to do that. That's not democratic. Right. So,
sorry, can I add one thing to the staff perspective on this? Is just we will also need time to evaluate like staff resources too, to make sure that we can adequately support all of this and, you know, make sure that we're delivering our end of the bargain on this. So I think having time to be able to do that will be helpful for staff. So if we can keep that in mind.
sure. Yeah, that's why I think it should sit for a meeting. I don't think we need to make this decision today. I just think that it's nice to have a skeleton so that we don't have to all come up with our own plans and, you know, like, let's just have this discussion about what's presented. Does it sound like something that works for people? And we can come back to the next meeting to see if it's something that we want to implement. But I kind of threw everything in So like we can also assess whether there's too much on these committees for the committee members that are assigned. And also making sure that we, yeah, I'll leave it there. Go ahead. Sorry.
And I also want to be mindful of every committee member. If you don't feel comfortable, this is the time to, bring that up. Because I realize that you try to create a skeleton, but we also need to be mindful of each person and their opinion as to whether or not that's within their capacity or even something that they want to pursue. So I'm leaving that open for discussion as well. Because again, I tend to want to, I like the idea of having the committees. I'm really in favor of getting something moving, but I don't want to just say, just because you're in that area, you have to be in that group or any specific, denotation. I like to let it be a little more organic, and if it's within your capacity, just to be mindful of your own needs. So, anyone want to make a motion or comment? Thank you.
Well, it's a question and it's for staff. And before I state my question, I just want to say my intentions are not to be a gotcha. It's just I want to make this a little bit more accessible. Charters are not accessible. So if you guys could just walk me through, and again, this isn't a gotcha. I understand things will change. Walk me through, if someone comes to that dais as a community member and says they have an issue, what is the pipeline to address it? If someone on this committee has an issue, what does that pipeline to address that look like? And also from the agency perspective, just so I can understand through this committee structure, how conversations will move and how we can actually get to some action.
Yeah, really appreciate the question. So I think at the top of my list is looking back at the slide of the interagency work plan based on the 3 agency kind of the opportunities for engagement. Those are what we've identified as probably the areas with which engagement would have the most influence and impact in our policies and programs and kind of funding structures. And so looking at this holistically, we're finding our pressure points together, right? And this, there's a lot there. There's a lot of pressure points that we want to get to. And there's also kind of a baseline that exists that we want to start from. So for example, I think I'm going to go back to Dave's presentation. There's definitely some state funding in there that was being addressed. And so we can look back and say what funding programs are here, what is being addressed here, and how are we being asked to influence these policies, and then how can we kind of merge that? I would say that is a path forward that we're really focused on, and we want to bring in other elements that are really important. And I know Connie has been bringing up Connie, more than Wi-Fi, broadband, which is also part of Caltrans, right? We're do a lot of these things that aren't necessarily on the work plan are still things that are part of our interagency. So it's okay, let's get there. Let's see what's being proposed, where that plugs in, what else is being proposed, and also where people have capacity to engage in things too. So it's I know it's a really general
I think going back
response,
to our question.
Wait,
Martha, sorry.
I got it. So, okay, what I understand is, I think what's really clear is if an agency wants input on something going on, we have a process for that. There's an email. You guys handle all of that on your end. We're able to engage. And so I understand that agency component. I also have seen, I think that's a great example of from the dais, we've been able to raise things. And so when those then go to ad hoc committees, is the expectation if I have an issue with something and I bring it to this body, the chair is then able to create an ad hoc committee. That committee then goes and works on said issue, and then we bring it back to the larger body.
And then that becomes a recommendation from the subcommittee or ad hoc committee to the committee as a whole. The committee as a whole deliberates and creates an official committee recommendation that
Lord.
is voted on. And then that gets
Okay.
elevated. Yeah.
The community member comes to the dais and says, voices their concerns. We take that on. EAC member then says, I'm going to take this issue on, then the same ad hoc committee process goes through.
One of the models that we have been looking at a lot, and not necessarily copying exactly, but as a subcommittee-based equity advisory committee, is the Disadvantaged Communities Advisory Group that informs the Energy Commission and the California Public Utilities Commission. And they basically are, like, they have topic areas, 2 people for each. They kind of work on their recommendations throughout the year, and at the end of the year, bring back their kind of committee recommendations per subject matter area. And so that's an example of a way that like workflow could happen. And then that becomes official recommendations of the committee. And then like the agencies and kind of, we work together to figure out how to move those recommendations. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm gonna dial in it just a little bit more because I thought of another element of this.
Yeah.
So community member comes to this meeting today, February. I say, I care about that issue. We need to form an ad hoc committee. The ad hoc committee can be formed today, February.
Yes.
Ad hoc committee meets in March, maybe. We bring something to the meeting, the larger body in April for discussion. We can get that on the agenda, but we're not allowed to vote because, is that correct? Because of the way that,
So if your ad hoc committee is 2 people, there's kind of no public meeting restrictions around that. So
Right.
a lot of work can get done. And then we just ask that any recommendations that you want the body as a whole to adopt and recommend, you kind of report that out as a subcommittee, as an ad hoc committee to the committee as a whole. The committee deliberates.
so in April, that would happen?
Yes.
And then a vote would happen at the next larger meeting because
I think it could happen.
the
after
recommendation.
April.
Okay, I just want to get the timeline of how quickly we can move things.
Yeah.
One thing I would just add, do you mind if I just close my thought for Naila? Okay, so I'm Laura Pennybaker. I'm a deputy director at CTC. And one thing I think would be important in that loop of communication is just making sure staff understands like what you all have arrived at so we can make sure that we are representing it as part of the meeting materials. And something else that I think will be really important in this process is to, when we hear things from the dais from community members, that we're able to understand what exactly they're asking us to do and whether the 3 agencies have the ability to do that, so that if we need to provide advice, in another capacity, like we can do that. But, assuming that like it's within our purview and we can handle it within the scope of the committee, then absolutely the ad hoc subcommittee could meet, could work on something that they want to bring potentially for action to the next meeting, and staff can help facilitate that.
Okay, just one more point, so sorry. Well, then I would like to make a recommendation, or I wouldn't call this an amendment at all. But because I want this body to be able to move quickly, I think then we also have to find some way to streamline the way that ad hoc committees are also bringing recommendations so that staff has capacity, so that we as a body can see it. I appreciate like the work that Chair Walker gave, right? But we're throwing this and then we're all trying to dissect it. There needs to be some type of formality to how ad hoc committees then are also functioning and sharing and presenting that information in a way that helps efficiency, so that we can just move quickly. That's my only recommendation or thought.
Go ahead, Chair.
I was just gonna say that, considering what was just said by staff, it behoove us to look at these ad hoc subcommittee recommendations I made, and maybe it's better that you just choose the person you want, because like that's more organic and you can develop. So like the 3 recommendations about geography, the reason I think that that's a good way to go is that if for some reason you had to notice something that couldn't be teleconference because of the type of issue it was, you could figure something else out within 100 miles of these folks. These people are all within 100 miles of each other. So that's what I was thinking about. But for the ad hoc, like, Maybe y'all don't like Chair Walker, so you don't want to be my partner. So therefore, you want to like then choose your own partner, and it would be better to think about that. So like this is why this is a good conversation. And the only reason that my items couldn't be voted on today is because they didn't get in 10 days ahead, and I didn't have time. So that's the main reason.
I certainly can appreciate that. That's basically what I wanted to say, is like keeping it diplomatic, you know, and organic, right? But I also want to, you know, bring up the idea that, you know, we need to maintain a little bit of idea for it to be more mainstream. Is someone wanting? Connie, would you like to speak? Go ahead, Connie.
Well, I wanted to respond to staff, and I wanted to thank staff for acknowledging my passion around broadband. The state has $2 billion that is going to be used on Caltrans roads to provide the access to the digital divide. That is what brought me to this committee. That is what has the inequity around where that placement is going to go, and the difficulty in certain areas of the state at using right of way to get to places is why I've been sitting in this room since day one. And, you know, I sent staff a note about the fact that the Mercury News, the San Francisco Chronicle, and the LA Times all wrote scathing reports about how the $2 billion is going to be used, and it's missing low income and Black and brown areas of the state. And personally, I don't want to be appointed to an ad hoc committee. I would like to know if there's anyone else who would like to join me on an ad hoc committee to address this issue. And at least go and talk to Caltrans about what's going on here. And why did some critical places that this money was really designed to provide service to get funded? I mean, not get on the list. Well, they got on the list, but they're not in there. It's iffy, guys. So is there, you know, that's what I want. That's what I want to know today. Is there anyone else who would like to join me on an ad hoc committee so that we can go talk about this issue outside of this room? If not, I'd love to know, because then I'll probably resign and go find another way of addressing this issue.
Don't resign. That's
you know, I mean, I have to tell you, for my build, when I started this process, my build got done. But I know the rest of the state is struggling with this. And I would like to take my experience that I learned in District 1 and help others with it. And that's really, honestly, I mean, not that I don't appreciate all the other things that this committee does and love it, but that $2 billion is going to expire. and plans today are getting, and they're going to wealthier communities in the state. And so I think this is like one of the state's biggest equity challenges right now. And so if there's another person who wants to do an ad hoc, that's where I don't want to just be assigned to an ad hoc committee. I'd like to be able to use my passion on an ad hoc committee.
Amber, you want to go ahead and comment on that, and I'll follow you.
I would echo Connie's concerns and happily jump on board with you so you don't leave us. I think that although looking at the ad hocs, the way that Chair Williams has put together area, I think that's great, but you are right. It might be best suited by passion or concern with what organization we all work with, and then move that way. I believe we'd have the ability to kind of change as needed per issue. So it doesn't have to be specifically every ad hoc by area or region or passion. So we can kind of organically decide based on each issue.
This isn't a marriage.
Right.
So you have
Exactly.
the ability to facilitate and vacillate in different spaces. And I think that's the beauty of it. And I do not want you to leave, Connie. I mean, during COVID, that was a perfect example of how communication and that divide separated us. It was either life or death for many people, and the information. And to be part of a Latino emergency coalition that had to come into place because there was no other infrastructure set up for communication, and internet played a vital role in that communication. So if that money is there, and because we've been so busy trying to set this up, right, create this infrastructure for our group, we haven't been able to get into the meat and potatoes of the things that we want to do. And thank you for bringing that to our attention, because we don't want the train to go by before we can actually get on board and move some of these items forward. So yes, I'm totally for even helping in any way, you know, whether it's interpretation, whether it's creating our own little groups within the community after you kind of figure out how you're going to disseminate this and bring it back to us so that we have better knowledge of how that funding was apportioned, because I'm not aware and I would like to be aware. Chair Walker?
I'd like to make a recommendation that we go around right now, because I think it'll save time for every member that's here. We can do it kind of as a roll call, if you don't mind, Clerk Remedios. We're gonna just, for each member, if no one opposes, say 2 committee areas you'd like to work on between now and, let's say, not the April meeting, but the following one would be, is that June? No, it's May. Okay, so by the May meeting, so we'll give 2 issues that we'd like to each work on personally, your personal passion, 2 issues right now. It doesn't preclude these geographic committees. You don't have to meet until you call a meeting. So I think we should leave them like as a structure, but right now, say 2 issues that you're interested in. And based upon that, I will come up with a list of 2-person ad hoc committees and more larger issue-based committees that can be sent out by staff between now and the next meeting. So I don't want it to wait until the next meeting. So that's my recommendation. Can I have a motion in a second?
I'll second the motion.
You can move it. I'm entertaining a motion. So you're.
Action was not noted. You can't take action like that.
Oh.
As the chair, you can make a recommendation and we could do that if you want.
Oh.
But taking an action would be inappropriate.
Oh, okay. Okay. So then, but we can all go around and pull each other. So why don't we pull each other by member? If you don't mind calling the roll, just so that you have the list in front of you.
Not a problem at all.
If you would, please.
All right. Vice Chair Armis Kelly.
My total thing would be safety in the corridors and for transportation. And I would have to go with the idea of building the EAC and creating more of a branding perspective for all of our jurisdictions to be connected with the EAC. So those are
Thank
the
you.
2 things.
Member Contreras.
Caltrans Transportation Equity Index, and like to work on that if possible, and anti-displacement memo.
Thank you. Member Despain is not here. Member Gonzalez.
All right. I wanna, ooh, that's a hard one. Oh, okay, good. 'Cause I'm like, that would be helpful. Thank you. The anti-displacement one for sure.
I know, I have that in mind.
And it can change. This is just for 2 months. I know you're all on the spot, but just pick something for 2 months. And we can come back to you for your second one.
Yeah, if you can come back to me, I have to think about it.
Okay. Member Hastings is absent. Member Martinez. Member Martinez, you're muted.
Okay, how about now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. So are you guys all looking at a list of topic areas, or are we just thinking up whatever we want to?
It's really just 2 passions you want to work on
Okay.
from the EAC. It can come
Okay.
from the list or not.
Well, I'm not looking at a list, so there you have it. So I would like to see us I would like to look at housing and proximity to transit. And sort of the elevation of the word, disability and accessibility in all of the policy language that we are working on. Because we've got race, we've got everything. And I'm not really seeing enough disability related inclusion. So I'd like to do that.
I mean, it's just like, how do you?
Thank you. Member Novi.
I will jump on board with Connie to make sure she has an ad hoc. And then overall Caltrans transportation and safely implementing transportation. So we lose no workers on the roadway.
Thank you. Member Pope Harden.
I am gonna abstain because this is my last meeting.
Thank you. Member Stewart.
Thank you for the broadband ad hoc. And, I'm cognizant of the fact that during public comment, there were people that brought up things that they wanted us to address around Highway 15 or highway expansion. So I would like to be able to address that, what came before us today.
Thank you. Member Torres Van Vleck.
Thank you, leadership and everyone for this discussion. I'd be interested in the anti-displacement conversation and also the kind of the intersection of transportation and housing and different funding opportunities that intersect with that.
Thank you. Member Ursua is absent. Member Villegas Walker.
So I would really like us to be involved with climate action plans and funding around the transition to electric vehicles and the siting of those stations and how we're going to be able to roll this out in an equitable way. So kind of I guess underneath the umbrella of climate action. And also separately from that, related to the state gas tax. And this maybe would come under finance or transportation funding. The fact that there's an ever widening gap between availability of funding under the gas tax and making the transition to perhaps a vehicle mile travel way of funding our transportation system.
Thank you. Member Williams.
Yeah, I'm interested in housing displacement mitigation and also climate action planning.
Chair Walker.
I'm really trying to round out what I'm seeing here, and and Ms. Stewart, whenever there's something that only one person signs up for, I'm the ex officio, so you never have to worry about that. I was going to step up if Ms. Novi didn't. But definitely transit sustainability, which is really funding. So it's kind of like what my cousin's talking about. And I'm going to leave it at that for now. I don't know where else because it looks like everything else is rounded out. And we're going to go back to Anna before we go.
Okay, Anna.
Member Gonzalez.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, definitely the anti-displacement for me. And then I was gonna say mass transit and like incentives of public transportation, but I guess it can fall under the climate action plan umbrella and just transition. So I don't know how that's gonna work, but those are my two.
And I just wanted to amend because I was like, but it's really important to look at how climate is going to play out in transportation. I mean, I live in the Central Valley and just having the floods that happened, the atmospheric rains, it's really, I think that we're not, and it's not that we're not, but it's something that has to be part of the conversation because we're learning as we're going, right? And as we're facing these situations, the disasters that are going to affect our communities, we have to put that narrative in the language and in whatever context it is, whether it's housing, whether it's broadband. We can separate people and infringe even more disparity and marginalize communities just by not looking at the impacts of climate.
So when I say safety, that's what I'm talking about, those corridors. You know, when the rain comes, how are we making it safe for folks that are out there? When we're talking about access, how are we making it a safe way for folks to be able to access this? And then the most important, which I mean, as a climate advocate, I have to talk about air, you know, and how are we working with other organizations and other parts of governance, whether it's CARB, whether, you know, we're talking about CalSTA, how can we work together and being able to understand the policies that we're creating for transportation? So that is really where it's at for me. And I just wanted to elaborate on that last part. So we're moving right along with.
I just want to leave it in your capable hands, Madam Chair, and give you the counsel I wish I had in Riverside. It was so hard to chair because I couldn't say anything. So, just
Are you
you're gonna get them to the end of the meeting, right?
All right, yes, I am.
All right, man. And I'm gonna try to be online, but really, really appreciate everyone for being.
Thank you, William.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
So we're,
Can I go
Peggy
ahead?
here.
Oh, Peggy, Peggy,
Hey.
I'll go after you.
Real quick, I don't, you know, you guys, I'm not looking at this document that you're all reading, because I cannot listen to it and whatnot, and read it at the same time and listen to you guys. So I just want to say, I'd also, I don't know if it's there, and that's why I'm talking about not being able to read it, because I'm not sure if the item that I'm interested is actually on the document, because it might be, and that is complete streets and walkability and that sort of thing. I think that is something that if it isn't there in our sort of like ideas and recommendations for what we do, I mean, complete streets and walkability and pedestrian safety and that kind of thing should be there. And I'd want to work on it when it is.
thank you, and that'd be included in our transportation.
It's in the document. It's both in the slides and it's in the written document. And again, now that we have our ad hoc structure, there won't be a situation where you won't have this stuff in advance. And I'm really sorry about that.
And also, if there's ever a need for any kind of materials, or if we need to address how we include any materials so that you can have access and feel like you're able to address us with all the information that we have, please let us know. We don't
Well,
wanna-
no, I will tell you now, the staff sends everything out. So I have things in advance. It's just basically in real time when we're talking about something, and I may have missed it. So yeah, when people are, you know, reading slides and I know you can't read every single word on every slide that you're delivering, but you know, basically speaking out loud, the gist of things, I think is going to have to do it, because we don't have time for you to read every single, you know, word that you're seeing on the screen. But that is one way to make it equitable for me, is to be clear on what the slides are, you know, containing. And I think people have generally done a very good job of that. So anyway, we can move on. Thanks.
I'll just clarify. It's because of Bagley Keene I couldn't get you the information ahead of the meeting. And even
Well, then that Bagley Key needs to be.
But we're working on it by having this committee structure so that we can talk beyond the two people. I can only, at that time, I could only talk to the vice chair. And so as we figure out how to communicate as a body, we'll have stuff in advance. It's extremely inexcusable, and I completely apologize.
Okay, very good. Thanks.
Peggy, I'll just add that a lot of the things that folks brought up are based on individual kind of priority areas and not necessarily, it wasn't what was on the slide.
Right, because I read a
Yeah.
bunch of this stuff. Okay, thanks, Sequoia.
Yeah. And I'm happy to read out what folks have identified as areas that they'd like to have kind of moving forward with on ad hoc committees. And also, you know, we can continue to hash this out via email and via direct communication, and to figure out kind of these passion priority focus areas that were discussed right now, how they kind of where within the work plan, where within the educational opportunities, these kind of different pieces of the puzzle, kind of where they can go. And we've been having a lot of discussions around kind of like a visualization of this too could be helpful. So really glad to have this written down. And so why don't I go ahead and just read through really quickly what folks have said. And then of course, if there are other things that you want to be out there, you have our contact info. We're happy to have those discussions. We're happy to meet with you individually or in pairs. Okay, Martha identified safety and transportation corridors, branding and communications, and climate within transportation, especially during emergencies, safety, access, air quality. Member Contreras, the Caltrans EQI and the anti-displacement memo. Gonzalez, anti-displacement, mass transit and climate action planning and just transition. Martinez, housing and kind of transit-oriented development, elevation of disability-related inclusion, complete streets and walkability. Novi, broadband, Caltrans transportation and safety. Stuart,